Chapter 862. In the depths of the damning Pure Land, golden light shone brilliantly. Pure white mist curled around every mountain, rustling pine trees, gurgling silver creeks, and rippling spiritual energy. Amidst the clouds and rosy clouds, the atmosphere of immortals was evident. At this time, Chu Feng walked over gracefully with a smile on his face. He was going to see Qin Luoyin because she had finally invited him for a chat. Along the way, all the male disciples of the damning Pure Land had ugly expressions. They were fairly hostile toward Chu Feng and were glaring with wide eyes. That was because they knew the wind had completely changed. Some elders had suggested taking this demon as their son-in-law and choosing him as Qin Luoyin's Tao companion. They were too furious. The eyes of the group of youths were spitting fire. They wanted nothing more than to rush over and fight to the death with the demon Chu Feng. They wanted to press him to the ground and rub him to the ground. My heart hurts. Luoyin is the #1 descendant of the Pure Land. She's pure and flawless, and also the goddess in the eyes of all the youths in the starry skies. She's peerless, elegant, and capable of toppling cities. She's going to use her body to feed a demon and marry a native demon from an uncivilized planet? The group was furious, but what could they do? They weren't his match at all. Didn't they see Ying Wudi? He was one of the strongest geniuses in the universe, but in the end, he was beaten into submission by Demon Chu. An old woman scolded, "Shut up, Earth is already one of the top 10 planets. It's replaced by the deity race, so it's not a barbaric planet. Moreover, they were extremely glorious in ancient times. Generally speaking, they have inheritances and ancient historical foundations. They're not a barbaric land." At this juncture, she naturally had to change her words. If by any chance she really married Qin Luoyin to Chu Feng, it wouldn't do anyone any good if they continued to fight. "Elder, I want to cry. He's already a demon at such a young age. He'll definitely be the most terrifying demon king in the starry skies in the future. Junior sister Luoyin is bright and flawless, as pure as ice and as clean as jade. She's like the bright moon in the sky, a fairy from the higher realms with peerless grace. In the end, she's going to marry a demon?" A young man was filled with grief and indignation. He was one of the strongest young experts in the Pure Land apart from Qin Luoyin and was ranked within the top 3. He had been looking forward to it before, but now, he was completely disheartened. The old woman said, "All of you know that he's already capable of sweeping through all the kings of his generation, so wouldn't he be even more invincible in the future? Whether it's for him, Luoyin, or our damning Pure Land, this is considered good news. In the future, we have a taboo expert who can look down on the entire universe to protect us. What's there to be dissatisfied about? But he came knocking on our door and killed his way into our damning Pure Land. If we were to really agree to this marriage, wouldn't that make our damning Pure Land seem weak? Moreover, he said that he would become the sovereign sex master of my Pure Land. Once he succeeds, then he's a bastard." Some disciples were unconvinced and started to argue. "Don't mind these things. So what if he fought his way in? Who knows, it might become a beautiful story in the future," said another old woman. She was actually speaking up for Chu Feng. An old man nodded and said, "If Luoyin's son is outstanding enough, why can't he become the sect master in the future? As for this so-called sovereign sect master, it's just a joke." In reality, once there was a change in thinking, it was like the saying, "Love the house, love the crow. Hate the house, hate the crow." All sorts of changes would occur along with it. Some old women from the damning Pure Land felt that accepting Chu Feng wasn't a bad thing and that there would be many benefit. As such, some of them started to try and whitewash Chu Feng's name. Naturally, there were also some old women and old men with ashen expressions. They hadn't acknowledged Chu Feng all this time and were still competing with each other. Just like those divine sons and saintesses who were sold by Chu Feng. In the past, it was a disgrace, but now that Chu Feng has displayed such powerful combat strength, Do you guys still think it's a disgrace after being captured? If it were you guys, you would only be sold. But after a few decades or a century, it's really hard to say. Perhaps it's just as that donkey said, being sold by Chufeng could be considered a proof of genius. It's not a setback, but a different kind of glory. As soon as these words were spoken, the youths at the scene felt as if they were struck by lightning. The damage they received was too great. Even these important elders were speaking up for Chufeng. Was there any justice left in the world? At this moment, they weren't the only ones who were unreconciled. The other outstanding talents who came to damning Pure Land as guests also clenched their fists tightly. They looked on helplessly as Chufeng went to meet Qin Luoyin and disappeared into the depths of the bamboo forest. Wu Luanhui, where are you? Come out and have a decisive battle with Demon King Chufeng. This time, I won't slander you. I guarantee to support you with all my strength and cheer for you. Someone shouted angrily. He summoned Wu Luanhui and wanted him to come out and keep Demon King Chufeng in check. At this moment, Chufeng and Qin Luoyin were chatting happily. Of course, this was only a one-sided opinion of his. This place was very secluded. There was a purple bamboo forest not far away with dense spirit qi and flowing purple mist. It was like the southern sea's purple bamboo forest, was accompanied by a sparkling and translucent lake that overflowed with colorful light. Nearby, there was a beautiful short mountain with spirit vines twining around it, emitting a flickering luster. Lakes and swamps were dotted with spotlessly white stone-arched bridges and pavilions. Chufeng said a lot and didn't regard himself as an outsider at all. At first, Qin Luoyin was listening very calmly and didn't speak much. That was because even though she had recovered many of her memories from the foreign land, she still remembered all along the bumpy conflicts between the two of them. There were still some knots in her heart. But as this shameless and thick-skinned Chufeng kept on talking, she couldn't stay calm anymore. Even her cheeks were slightly red. What nonsense are you talking about? Qin Luoyin felt that this fellow was too shameless. They had just met and hadn't chatted for long, but he was already addressing them as an old married couple and acting very familiar. What's there to be embarrassed about between us? Why are you acting like an outsider? Chufeng was all smiles. But in Qin Luoyin's eyes, she felt that this kind of smile was very hateful. It was a little cheap, and also a little evil. In short, she could tell at a glance that he wasn't serious at all. Chufeng said in a negotiating tone, "After we get married, do you think it's better to make our son the cult master or our daughter the cult master?" Qin Luoyin's figure was tall and slender. Her skin was fair and lustrous as though she was carved from suet jade, but she was even more agile. Her entire being was graceful and luxurious, and there was nothing to say about her appearance. Could be said that she was absolutely beautiful. At this moment, she had a stunned expression on her face. Then, her face instantly turned crimson. She really couldn't stand him. She felt that this fellow was too shameless. "What nonsense are you talking about? Where do you have a daughter?" she scolded lightly. Chufeng said, "Indeed, we don't have one now, but we definitely have to have one. After we get married, we'll strive to nurture an obedient, intelligent, and beautiful little girl. This father is really shameless. I haven't even been born yet, but he already has a cheap expression on his face. He wants to have a daughter. How shameful." Even the little Taoist couldn't stand this kind of evaluation. He couldn't stand his father. After that, tragedy befell him. Chufeng immediately said after hearing his voice, "You must be careful when you have another daughter. She mustn't come with memories. It's enough to have an unfilial son, not a rebellious daughter. Also, this unfilial son must be dealt with first." "Who's going to have a child with you?" Qin Luoyin felt her cheeks heat up. What kind of person was this? They had just come over to try and mend their relationship. They hadn't even talked for a long time, and he was already talking about giving birth to a daughter. She couldn't stand it. Father, I'm your creditor from your previous life. I'm here to collect my debt in this life. Return my black talisman. We've already returned to this cosmos, but I haven't seen any movements from you. Also, where's our family heirloom? The little Taoist blabbered on and on. After that, he changed the topic and said, Mother, you must pay attention. It's said that a daughter is a father's lover from his previous life. He has ulterior motives and wants to return the debt of affection from his previous life. Shut up, unfilial son. Chu Feng berated him. Then, he looked at Qin Luoyin and said, This unfilial son has come with memories. I just feel that he's too monstrous. We must sort out the situation. I feel that he must have a cesarean section. Also, find a divine beast to be his wet nurse. Otherwise, it'll be too awkward to raise a son who has come with memories normally. Father, you're taking revenge. How cruel! You want to cut me out? The little Taoist was indignant. He felt more and more that this father of his wasn't a kind-hearted person. Stop talking nonsense. If you weren't my son, I would have long since beaten you into the reincarnation cave and sent you to the afterlife, said Chu Feng. Mother, come and judge. Isn't he going too far? The little Taoist was unconvinced. Who knew that Qin Luoyin would actually agree with Chu Feng's point of view after some consideration? She decided to have a cesarean section and then find a powerful wet nurse for the little Taoist. Oh my! I haven't even been born and I've already suffered 10,000 points of critical damage. Is this still my biological mother? Is this still my biological father? Is there still justice in this world? You guys are too shameless. The little Taoist shouted, but he didn't resist to the end. That was because he also felt that he had come with memories and indeed made these two people feel very awkward. Sigh, actually, I know what's going on. You guys want to make a baby and give birth to a little daughter to enjoy the gentle and charming world of the two of you. That's why you abandoned me in advance. Qin Luoyin couldn't stand him. What kind of shameful words were these? She immediately slapped the little Taoist's abdomen and beat him up. However, Chu Feng was nodding and said, Unfilial son, what you said makes sense. With a burden like you by my side, this is nothing. I think you're still very self-aware. The little Taoist immediately cried out, Father, how thick-skinned have you become? It's fine if you think these kinds of words in your heart, but you actually dare to say them out loud. You're too shameless. After that, Chu Feng walked over and gently held onto Qin Luoyin's waist. What are you doing? Qin Luoyin's lustrous and absolutely beautiful cheeks immediately turned crimson. She rapidly retreated and wanted to avoid his arm. Don't move. I just feel that this unfilial son, Chu Nan, is too outrageous and I want to teach him a lesson. We might as well dig him out earlier and keep him for the new year. Otherwise, when will our daughter be born? Qin Luoyin really felt a little dizzy after hearing Chu Feng's shameless word. She really wanted to give him a slap. After that, she immediately took light and agile steps to avoid him. However, Chu Feng's strength was formidable and he was unrivaled among those of the same generation. He moved together with her and held onto her waist as though they were dancing lightly and gracefully. They crossed the small stone bridge, the lake, and the swamp. Their clothes fluttered in the wind as though they were an immortal couple. In the distance, a young disciple of the damning Pure Land walked over to deliver a letter. In the end, he just happened to see this scene and immediately spat out a mouthful of old blood. He was inconsolable with grief and indignation. How long had it been? The great demon King Chu Feng was holding on to his junior sister's waist and walking on the wave. They were flying side by side. It was too hurtful. Ah, my blood. My heart hurts. That young disciple cried out. Senior brother, why are you here? What happened? Qin Luoyin stubbornly and resolutely slapped away Chu Feng's hand and pushed him away. My heart hurts. This second senior brother's face was full of resentment as he replied subconsciously. He glared at Chu Feng with hatred and gnashed his teeth. But in the end, he let out a long sigh because there was nothing he could do. Following which, he quickly informed, "Junior sister, something big has happened. A super young expert from the Pure Land has arrived. He claims to have come from another universe and is boundlessly terrifying. He specifically said that he wants to see you." Even Elder Chui couldn't stop him. After that, he turned around and ran away. He really didn't want to stay in this place any longer. His heart was too sad. "Senior brother, why is there blood on the corner of your mouth? Did the great demon King Chu Feng attack you? We'll go and avenge you." After passing through the purple bamboo forest and running back to the front, a group of people saw him in such a state. They immediately surrounded him with great concern. "Sai, our junior sister is going to marry Demon King Chu. I saw the two of them, let's not talk about it." This second senior brother's heart was like dead ashes as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. At this time, even more people were paying attention to the other side because something big had happened. Chu Feng had returned. Qin Luoyin was also following behind him, walking gracefully. In a split second, Chu Feng's gaze turned chilly and divine light erupted from his eyes. He saw the battle in front of him. Ing Wudi's chest had been pierced by a finger. Blood splattered everywhere as he coughed up blood at the same time. His body flew out horizontally. The person who attacked turned into a beam of light and chased after Ing Wudi. With a bang, he stepped on Ing Wudi and descended from midair. He stomped on him with one foot and then stepped on Ing Wudi's face. With a disdainful expression, he said, "Who do you think you are? Even though you're SOSO, you're not fit to contend with me." Chu Feng was immediately furious. No matter what, this was his brother-in-law. He couldn't ignore this matter for Ing Zhexian's sake. "Let go of my brother!" Ing Xiaoxiao shouted with a sobbing tone. She naturally felt sorry for her brother at this critical moment. She could see that this person indeed had evil intentions and wasn't lenient like Chu Feng. Chapter 863. This person was tall and had a rather handsome face. He had a head of shining silver hair and an extremely cold and arrogant temperament that looked down on everyone. Saying that all the geniuses in this cosmos were trash was absolutely infuriating. Everyone glared at him angrily. Yuan Shiqing couldn't help but step forward to meet him in battle, but he was pulled back by his sister Yuan. She was afraid he wouldn't be a match for him and would suffer a crushing defeat. "Let him go," Chu Feng said as he closed in and stared at the person in the field. However, that person didn't even spare Chu Feng a glance. He was fairly calm and collected, but his eyes immediately lit up when he looked at Qin Luoyin. "Stunning!" He revealed a smile and nodded over there. He actually ignored Chu Feng and ignored him. "Brother!" The silver-haired little Lolita cried out with tears in her eyes. That was because when this handsome man looked at Qin Luoyin and evaluated her, he unknowingly exerted force under his feet. This made Ing Wudi let out a muffled groan and cough up blood continuously. Ing Xiaoxiao was distressed and couldn't help but cry out. She was about to rush over. Chu Feng's expression was chilly. He flashed with a swoosh and pulled the silver-haired little Lolita back. He could naturally see that this person was very strong and wasn't someone a little girl could shake. Even her brother had been defeated. "So noisy, all of you shut up and behave yourself," the man in the field said coldly. He was extremely overbearing and still didn't look at Chu Feng and Ing Xiaoxiao. He wanted them to shut up and also ignored everyone else. He was extremely conceited and domineering. He only looked at Qin Luoyin and nodded slightly while praising her. At the same time, he exerted a little force under his feet. Ing Wudi's bones creaked as if they were about to break. Fresh blood flowed continuously from his mouth and nose. Chu Feng's pupils constricted and his killing intent filled the air. If it wasn't for the fear of harming the innocent, he would have made his move long ago. This person from the outer realms was too insolent. Qin Luoyin frowned. She was disgusted and disgusted by this silver-haired man. His gaze was extremely invasive, as if he wanted to see through her from head to toe. At this time, this person finally withdrew his gaze from Qin Luoyin and revealed a faint smile. Heavenly beauty, as expected of a famous beauty from the Yin realm. Although the so-called geniuses in this world are all inferior, this beauty is extremely stunning. Chu Feng spoke in a forceful and direct manner. You're really cocky. Didn't you despise your opponent for being weak? Let him go and I'll kill you. His murderous intent was not concealed at all, and he spoke it out directly. Immediately, everyone present was shocked, and at the same time, many people became excited. Before this, many of the youths had been hostile towards Chu Feng, but the events that had transpired in such a short period of time had infuriated them. This young powerhouse from the outer verse was too insolent, and he had humiliated everyone in their generation. It was truly infuriating and resentful. Just a moment ago, there were already people who were looking forward to Chu Feng's attack. Seeing that he did not disappoint them and was about to attack as soon as he appeared, they immediately became excited, hoping that he would win. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like this? This person was very tyrannical. This time, he finally glanced at Chu Feng coldly before shifting his gaze again. He didn't pay him any more attention. This made everyone feel that he was too arrogant. He was looking down on Chu Feng and all of them. He couldn't be bothered to look at him. Chu Feng took a step forward and was about to attack. Behave yourselves. At this time, the silver-haired man spoke once again with a hidden meaning of warning. Ing Wudi, who was under his foot, groaned and his face distorted. It could be said that he was suffering humiliation from being stepped on. Who was he? The descendant of the quasi-immortal race had his face stepped on by someone today. This was too much. No one had ever dared to humiliate their race like this. Let me finish speaking. Otherwise I'll stomp him to death first, the silver-haired man said coldly. You're really pretending to be 13. Do you think you're the current protagonist blessed by the fortune of heaven and earth, the child of destiny? This kind of behavior, if you're not really going against the heavens, you're going to be beaten to death. Even though he felt that this person was indeed very terrifying and his strength was excessively powerful, he still felt that he was courting death by doing this and inciting the anger of the masses. My name is Luo Shang. I'm from the deity palace in the chaotic universe. I'm a core direct descendant of the deity bloodline. This tall and slender silver-haired man introduced himself and talked about his origins, which immediately shocked everyone present. This was someone from the primal chaotic deity palace. As expected, he came from the outer realm. Chu Feng's eyes were faint as he muttered to himself, putting on such a big show. I thought you were the descendant of a powerhouse from the Yang realm. In reality, he was very dissatisfied. This person was too vile and overbearing. He humiliated Ing Wudi like this and looked down on all the geniuses of the Yang realm. He was really too arrogant. You actually know about the Yang realm and understand the descendants of those powerhouses? You're a frog at the bottom of a well. You should guess less, Luo Shang replied indifferently. Nearby, many people were stunned and began to discuss in a low voice. Even though they were hostile toward Chu Feng, they hated this person in front of them even more now. They couldn't wait for someone to suppress him immediately. Chu Feng said, Your mouth is quite sinister. Since you're so confident, then come over. I guarantee that I'll slap you to death. The most important thing at the moment was to rescue Ing Wudi. Chu Feng felt that this brother-in-law of his was somewhat pitiful. Ouyang Feng was also furious and said, I remember that the deity race has golden hair. Why is your head full of white hair? Are you a mutant? Or is your bloodline impure? He was using this method to scold Luo Shang as a bastard because he really didn't like this person. You're courting death, understand? Luo Shang swept his eyes over them and said indifferently, "But I don't have the time to deal with you guys now. I'll settle this with you guys later." He turned around and looked at the group of elders from Damning Pure Land. He revealed a faint smile and said, "I heard that Damning Pure Land is looking for a spouse today, so I'm here to give it a try." He expressed his intentions and wasn't too disrespectful to the people from the Pure Land. After all, he came with a purpose. After that, he looked at Qin Luoyin and said, "Fairy, are you willing to go to the primal chaos universe with me and enter the deity palace?" "No." Qin Luoyin rejected him straightforwardly. "Heh, you're quite fierce and wild. You actually dare to reject me so straightforwardly." Luo Shang looked at the elders from Damning Pure Land and said, "Everyone, what do you think? The geniuses of this universe are too useless. They've all been defeated by me, so I'm here to ask for a marriage." He was confident because he was well aware of the reality of this universe. All the experts above the saint level had left and entered the dilapidated universe in the primal chaos to fight for the divine position. They had all entered the War God Palace's area, including their deity palace, as well as the other major powers in the primal chaos universe. They were also making an all-out effort to blast open the War God Palace and obtain the divine position. Rumor has it that other than the divine position, there were other Dao positions that could be inherited. This made every race go crazy. This time, he crossed the ancient road of primal chaos with many difficulties and came to this universe. He had nothing to fear because he wanted to come to this empty land to harvest some opportunities. As for the so-called peerless beauty, he naturally brought her along. "Seniors, what do you think?" Luo Shang spoke again and asked the important elders from Damning Pure Land. At the same time, he raised his voice slightly and said, "Some time ago, my race's Luo Shurong walked in the Yin Realm universe as an emissary, but in the end, something happened to him in Damning Pure Land's trial. Even if he's not a core direct descendant, we can't let him die for no reason." This was a warning, and his voice was chilly. The people from Damning Pure Land immediately trembled, and some elders became restless. No matter what, they felt that they most likely couldn't afford to offend the primal chaotic deity palace. It was very troublesome now because a truly outstanding genius from their race had come to visit them. Now it seemed that Luo Shurong was also very strong as an emissary, but he was far from being comparable to the core direct descendant. Luo Shang smiled and said, "Fairy Qin, look at this place. Just how weak are the so-called geniuses of the Yin Realm universe? They're too disappointing and all of them are trash. I think if you go to the primal chaotic universe with me, you'll never want to come back. The resources and cultivation environment there far surpass this place." "I'm not interested." Qin Luoyin's tone was cold. She refused again without even looking at him. At this moment, Ying Xiaoxiao wiped away her tears and shouted, "Let go of my brother! Isn't it just the primal chaotic deity palace? We're from the quasi-immortal race, and we have our ancestral land in the primal chaos. If you dare to humiliate our race like this, your primal chaotic deity palace won't have it easy when the time comes." Luo Shang was deeply surprised and said, "Is that so? You're actually from the quasi-immortal race. But you guys aren't from the central immortal cave of the primal chaos, so it's no big deal." Speaking up to this point, he lowered his head to look down at Ing Wudi and said with a sneer, "Quasi-immortal race, interesting. They often fight fiercely in the primal chaotic universe and are in a competitive relationship with us. You guys from the Yin realm are too weak." After that, he looked at Qin Luoyin again and said, "I remember your Damning Pure Land saying that the strongest person who can defeat Chu Feng and everyone else will be Fairy Qin's Dao companion. Today, I'm standing here to see which one of you can get past me. I'm determined to take you away. I want to see who can stop me." A few elders from Damning Pure Land were very moved and wanted to say something. If they were to choose Demon King Chu Feng as Qin Luoyin's Dao companion, perhaps it would be better to choose this person. After all, his background was too terrifying. But even more elders were cold and indifferent as they stopped these few elders. I'm Chu Feng. If you have any thoughts about Fairy Qin and want to suppress the outstanding heroes here and come out on top, then you'll have to get past me first, said Chu Feng calmly. He didn't provoke him and didn't use any intense words of ridicule either. He just wanted to saving Wudi safely. Bang! In the end, Luo Shang's eyes were cold as he stared at Chu Feng and kicking Wudi into the air. The bones in his body crackled incessantly as many of them were broken. His kick was very heavy and almost causing Wudi to explode. Chu Feng rushed up immediately and caughting Wudi. He quickly injected boundless life energy into him and helped him stabilize his injuries. At this moment, Luo Shang shouted coldly, Chu Feng, you evil creature! Your earth has conquered the settlement of our people in the Yin realm cosmos. I heard you're the scourge of this generation and killed many people from the deity race in the Yin realm cosmos. You should be put to death. Chu Feng laughed more or less coldly. He could finally let go of his hands and feet and didn't need to be afraid of harming the innocent. It's good that you know me. To tell the truth, your deity race is nothing. We're about to exterminate you. So what if someone from the primal chaotic deity palace comes? We're destined to be mortal enemies. I heard it's very difficult for people from your side to enter the Yin realm cosmos due to the restrictions of the laws. How did a mouse like you get in? Chu Feng's contemptuous expression and fearless words immediately infuriated Luo Shang. You're courting death. The geniuses of this cosmos are all trash and can't even withstand a single blow. How dare you boast shamelessly in front of me, especially a reckless demon like you. I've been looking for you all this time. Die! Luo Shang roared loudly and punched out with a boom. Silver rays of light erupted like the undulations of a vast ocean and smacked toward Chu Feng with terrifying energy. Chu Feng trembled and dodged in an instant. His expression changed completely. This person was really powerful. Were all the young experts of the primal chaotic universe so terrifying? He opened his fiery eyes and stared at this person with all his might. He wanted to see through his actual situation. Yes, there's a ball of light on your abdomen. It has a part of the quasi-sage's aura. In a split second, Chu Feng knew the secret of his strength. He had once obtained part of the quasi-sage's origin. No wonder. Is this the reason why you're so arrogant? You despise people from our cosmos. In fact, you're nothing. Chu Feng's eyes were cold. He rushed over to fight it out with Luo Shang. However, Luo Shang was really terrifying. Outsiders couldn't see that he had mobilized part of the quasi-sage's origin energy. They could only see him sweeping through the area as easily as breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The void was trembling and rumbling as numerous black cracks appeared. The scene was too terrifying. Goddammit, this white-haired guy is really so powerful. He has the capital to be arrogant. Even Ouyang Feng was horrified and worried for Chu Feng. Everyone's expression changed in the vicinity because Chu Feng was evading the brunt of the attack. He was constantly using extreme speed to evade and didn't clash head-on with Luo Shang. In everyone's eyes, the great demon Chu Feng was being suppressed. Chu Feng's expression was cold and detached. He used his fiery eyes to observe the quasi-sage energy ball of light in this person's body. In the end, he finally moved and attacked violently. That was because he had captured an opportunity. He saw that the quasi-sage energy ball was slightly sluggish and didn't transmit any energy for a short moment. Then, he counterattacked. Boom! A single punch from Chu Feng blasted through this person's protective light screen and collided head-on with his fist, causing Luo Shang's body to tremble violently. At the same time, Chu Feng used the Yang Realm Divine technique, the fusion of Lightning Fist and Virokana Fist. It became a variant fist technique that combined speed and power into one. In particular, the speed was like lightning. It was simply too fast. Slap. At the last moment, Chu Feng's golden fist transformed into a palm and slapped Luo Shang's face, causing him to scream miserably. Half of his face almost disappeared and more than half of his teeth flew out. "I'm going to kill you!" Luo Shang bellowed and mobilized the quasi-sage's origin energy once again. He felt too humiliated because he had actually been slapped in the face in front of everyone. "Who do you think you are? How dare you look down on the geniuses of this universe? You're just relying on the shadows of your predecessors. Is this your own strength? You dare to be arrogant just because of this?" Chu Feng sneered. In fact, while saying these words, Chu Feng used the Yang Realm Divine Technique, Lightning Fist, and succeeded once again before the other party could mobilize the quasi-sage energy. This time, his slap landed on the other side of Luo Shang's face, immediately shattering the bones there and turning it into a bloody mess. Another slap to the face sent Luo Shang flying. "Who the hell do you think you are in terms of arrogance? So what if you come from the chaotic universe? You can still be chopped up and eaten." Chapter 864. Luo Shang's body flipped and flew hundreds of meters away. Half of his face had disappeared. His jawbone was shattered, and his cheekbone was split into pieces. It was truly a tragic sight. With a bang, he crashed into a brown stone mountain, causing the mountaintop to explode. The ruins of the broken mountain field flickered incessantly as he crashed into the ground. One could imagine how strong Chu Feng's strength was. One slap had sent him flying so far away and caused him serious injuries. Luo Shang's face was half destroyed, and his eyes were like swords. They were dripping blood and emitting a frightening cold light. Two beams of light flew out and stared fixedly at Chu Feng. To him, this was an extraordinary shame and humiliation. He came to the underworld universe because he was certain that no one in this generation was his match. He could crush them all the way. In reality, it was indeed the case earlier. Even the quasi-saint race wasn't his match. He stepped on them with one foot and looked down at them. Looking at this universe, under the suppression of the quasi-saint origin energy in his body, there was absolutely no one in the younger generation who was his match. But now, his invincible golden body had been broken. Two slaps had smashed his pride, which made him feel even more humiliated. His words from before had become a joke under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Not long ago, he was still looking down on the geniuses of this universe, saying that they were all trash. However, after being slapped across the face, he couldn't help but feel a burning pain, shame, and indignation. "Take back what you said. Aren't you just from a broken universe in the primal chaos? You're not a disciple of a powerhouse from the Yang realm." Chu Feng spoke indifferently. The more indifferent he was, the more Luo Shang's eyes turned scarlet. He felt that he was being looked down upon and was suffering humiliation. "Chu Feng, you evil creature demon. You've long been on my deity race's must-kill list. The main reason I came here this time was to kill you all," Luo Shang berated. He had already taken out a crystal jar and was drinking a sparkling and translucent blue medicinal liquid. That rotten half of his face was rapidly growing back. Chu Feng interrupted him and looked at him contemptuously. "Isn't 2 slaps enough to teach you a lesson?" The meaning behind his words was clear. He had already slapped him twice in the face, yet he still dared to threaten to kill Chu Feng. Did he have the strength to do so? At the same time, Chu Feng stared at the blue liquid in his hand and said, "What a waste. That medicine is mine. Don't take it." Luo Shang was stunned at first, but he quickly understood what he meant. He had already locked onto the medicinal liquid in his hands and viewed it as a spoil of war. What kind of arrogance was this, treating him like nothing? Around him, a group of people also had strange expressions on their faces. Luo Shang was already arrogant and despotic enough. Everything he did made people feel disgusted. Even Ing Wudi from the quasi-immortal race had his face stepped on by him and had his head lowered to look down on him. He even ridiculed all the geniuses in this cosmos for being unable to withstand a single blow and had long since incurred the wrath of the masses. But now that great demon Chu had made his move, he was even more valiant and in high spirits. He had directly slapped this person across the face and even looked down on him. For some reason, even those who had previously hated Chu Feng were secretly clapping their hands in delight upon seeing this scene. The main reason was that Luo Shang was too unpopular and overly insolent. Chu Feng, you scum. You're a barbarian from the savage land. Don't be arrogant in front of me. My deity race has a long inheritance and possesses the most ancient and glorious evolutionary civilization. What does a barbarian like you count as? It had to be said that Luo Shang was too conceited. He was still incomparably tyrannical even now. His lower jaw had been smashed, yet he still had that arrogant look on his face. His whole body was glowing, and his head of bright silver hair was dancing like divine flames. The silver light was resplendent, and his whole body was emitting a terrifying and violent energy. His strength had increased explosively. That was just an accident just now. I'm not ready yet. I'll kill you right now. Let's see how you're going to stop me. I'll stab you to death with a finger. Luo Shang roared like an ancient giant. Apart from his silver hair, his whole body was covered in golden light. His body was expanding explosively, and in a moment, he was 100 meters tall. This wasn't an ordinary secret technique. It wasn't a dermic image, nor was it formed from energy. Rather, it was a body of flesh and blood growing along with it. The golden blood chi unique to the deity race surged into the sky. Boom! The whole world was shaking violently. This shocked everyone and made them shudder with fear and trepidation. Some of the weaker young experts went limp all over and almost knelt down. That was because this kind of suppressive might carried a quasi-saint's aura. He had completely and thoroughly activated the quasi-saint's origin. Others couldn't see that ball of life light in his body, but Chu Feng's golden eyes could see it clearly. It was like a golden sun burning and releasing an endless stream of terrifying energy. The people in all directions were shaken. This kind of energy wasn't something a person at the Golden Arhat realm could deal with. Who could contend with a quasi-saint's aura? The expressions of the group of old monsters in damning Pure Land changed. Given Luo Shang's current state, even if they joined hands, they would most likely have to pay a great price. Many of them would be killed. Yuan Shiqing, the Vermilion Bird Fairy, Yuan, and the other universal geniuses all had ugly expressions after seeing this scene. They came from the top 10 and were ranked at the top of this generation, but now they felt that they were no match for Luo Shang. How can this person be so strong? Could he be a young quasi-saint? This is simply unimaginable. I've never heard of such a young quasi-saint. The others were also whispering. Ing Wudi's face was pale and on the verge of collapse. He was worried for Chu Feng. After all, he was standing up for him. Oh no, Luo Shang has activated all of his deity bloodline and released his strongest power. He's practically comparable to a quasi-saint. Even though the great demon Chu Feng is savage, he might not be able to withstand it. Everyone discussed in a low voice. Their expressions were unsightly. At this moment, they were bound by a common hatred for a common enemy. They didn't like Luo Shang and felt that he was too arrogant. I'll emphasize it again. The geniuses of the Yin Realm universe are all trash. Do you think you can contend with me? Chu Feng, demon, get over here. Who else is unconvinced? You can follow me and surround me. I'll crush all of you with one hand. Luo Shang shouted coldly. His insolence and arrogance made everyone gnash their teeth. He was too king arrogant and conceited. Actually, it was mainly because he had been slapped twice and felt humiliated in his heart. Now he was hysterical because he wanted to display his overwhelming combat strength. He wanted to sweep away the geniuses of the Yin Realm universe and wash away his humiliation. Chu Feng didn't say anything. So what if a true quasi-saint came? Once he used his domain methods, who would be afraid of who? What was there to be afraid of? Moreover, this person wasn't a quasi-saint at all. He was only borrowing a portion of the origin. Therefore, he wore a cold smile and directly charged over without saying anything. Bang! Chu Feng soared into the sky. His entire body erupted with light and his energy aura rose sharply. He was like a blazing sun hanging in the sky. He was too resplendent. Even though he was only of average height, he wasn't the slightest bit weaker than the 100-meter-tall Luo Shang in terms of momentum. Kill! Luo Shang's eyes were cold. His entire body was surrounded by golden blood qi that pierced through the sky. The energy that erupted shook the void and caused the divine chains of order to rumble and explode without end. Around him, bolts of lightning interweaved. It was too dazzling and incomparably terrifying. Immediately, many people trembled and could no longer stand. Many people retreated at lightning speed, but there were still some people who were paralyzed on the ground. This was the suppression of energy and the deterrence of a quasi-saint's aura. Bang! There was a great disparity between the proportions of Chu Feng's figure and the 100-meter-tall golden giant. However, this punch of his was truly boundlessly terrifying. The light that erupted from his fist was too intense. It was as if a great sun had appeared and crashed forward. This is... Everyone widened their eyes in shock. That was because Chu Feng's aura was too strong. He didn't evade at all but directly confronted this opponent with the aura of a quasi-saint. Bang! In the sky, a large golden hand wanted to grasp Chu Feng in its hand and crush him to death directly. However, the energy that erupted from Chu Feng's body was too terrifying. He used a small portion of the domain power and runes appeared in an area. They were extremely dazzling and blazing to the extreme. It was as if the sun had exploded and blocked this large golden hand in the sky. After that, with a puff, Chu Feng's fist blasted through this palm, bringing with it a large amount of blood. His entire body directly penetrated through it and blasted through the large golden hand, just like that. At the same time, Chu Feng turned into a golden bolt of lightning and shot back. He swooped down and once again blasted toward Luo Shang. He said, "Is this your so-called strength that can defeat all the geniuses of our underworld cosmos? You're nothing more than this. You're nothing more than a clay chicken and pottery dog." Bang! 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 In a split second, he blasted out dozens of punches in succession. This was a divine technique from the Yang realm that was concealed by him. Everyone only saw the divine light exploding and the invincible golden fist imprints falling continuously. Luo Shang roared furiously and roared again and again. He didn't expect that his quasi-saint level energy would actually be blocked. Those were domain runes. Bang bang bang. In a split second, the two of them collided many times. In the end, even that 100-meter-tall golden giant like Luo Shang was beaten until he was sent flying. With a bang, he crashed into a large mountain. Domain runes appeared in large patches on that mountain and rubble collapsed into the sky. "Is that all you've got?" Chu Feng swooped down and kicked out, landing on that enormous head. With a bang, blood and flesh splattered in all directions. The kick almost exploded. Luo Shang let out a blood-curdling scream as he was sent flying once again. Chu Feng chased after him like a bolt of lightning. With a whoosh, he snatched away a spatial bracelet from Luo Shang's body. Naturally, it was for the sake of that blue medicine. After that, he tossed the medicine to Ingwudi and made him consume it. Ingwudi's eyes were burning and there were some hot tears in them. Of course, a person of his status naturally wouldn't shed tears in front of everyone. It was too embarrassing, but he was very grateful from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, he said softly, "Great Demon Chu Feng is so much better than Wu Luanhui. He's warm-hearted, loyal, and has a true temperament. This is what a great man should be." He felt that if it really didn't work out, letting Chu Feng marry his older sister was 10 times better than Wu Luanhui. Chu Feng had a calm expression on his face when he heard this kind of evaluation, but he cursed in his heart. What kind of expression would this younger brother-in-law have when he found out the truth and figured out who he was in the future? He reckoned he would cry. Luo Shang roared furiously as he charged into the sky, bringing along a large expanse of mountain rocks and a broken mountain peak. He was like a prehistoric giant beast with overflowing malice. He was stimulated to the point that his silver hair was disheveled and his eyes were scarlet red. It was too humiliating. He looked down on the geniuses of this universe again and again, but in the end, he was beaten up by Chu Feng continuously. The strongest technique, quasi-saint returning to the origin. He was like a wild beast with a wild nature. This time, his enormous body didn't enlarge but instead shrunk. A true deity's technique didn't lie in the size of the physique, but rather in the concentration of energy. Unfortunately, after he fully activated the quasi-saint energy, he could only shrink to a height of 6 meters and couldn't shrink anymore. However, his aura was a lot stronger than before. "I'll use you to practice and see what's so extraordinary about a so-called quasi-saint," said Chu Feng. He swooped down and fought fiercely with Luo Shang almost without using the domain. Moreover, he exposed his background and said, "The external object you rely on is the origin energy cultivated by other quasi-saints. If you only rely on yourself, you're nothing. There are many people in this universe who can kill you." Crack! Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled as the two fought fiercely. Their initial steps involved the quasi-saint level domain. Order runes interweaved and illuminated the void dazzlingly. "Chu Feng, demon, do you know that you've already entered my deity race's must-kill list? A law enforcement elder has taken action and will be able to exterminate you in the near future," Luo Shang roared. He was truly a bit terrified. He wanted to intimidate Chu Feng and throw his mind into disorder, but this had no effect on Chu Feng. The foreign realm had experienced ups and downs for 100 years, and his heart was as firm as iron. To him, the deity race was his mortal enemy. He simply didn't want to dissolve it. He would just kill any enemy of the race he saw. "Deity Palm," Luo Shang roared. He was really about to go crazy. He used all his methods and used part of the origin energy left to him by the clan's elders after they passed away, but he still couldn't take down his opponent. No matter how angry he was, it was useless. He was restrained by Chu Feng. The lightning fist was too fast, and Chu Feng's fist was incomparably swift, as if it had a demonic nature. Thunder rumbled and tens of thousands of electric arcs flew everywhere it passed. Luo Shang's mouth was full of blood and his body was sent flying. "Kill!" Luo Shang flew into a rage out of humiliation. He felt that he was too much of a failure today. He talked big, but in the end, he was sent flying like a scarecrow. "No geniuses from the deity race dare to appear after I killed them. The primal chaotic deity palace is nothing more than this. How can you be considered a core disciple like this? If you don't have the quasi-sage origin energy, you're nothing. I can blow up dozens of you with one hand." Chu Feng was merciless. His fist shone, and this time, he used the Vairocana fist. His appearance was solemn and dignified like a dazzling Buddha. His energy was terrifying, and the thunderous breathing technique was also activated. The divine sound was deafening. Of course, he had concealed these divine techniques. He wasn't willing to expose all kinds of techniques related to the Yang realm too early. Even so, it couldn't be considered an all-out attack, but it was still extremely terrifying. The entire void trembled and the pure land rumbled. Boom! After dozens of moves, Luo Shang was once again beaten by Chu Feng until the bones in his body exploded. He suffered heavy injuries and some of his bones were fractured. He flew out diagonally. Chu Feng used the world's end near-at-hand divine technique and chased after him. Thunderous sounds vibrated in his body and golden light filled the air around him. He was like a war immortal crossing the sky as he crushed Luo Shang in a powerful manner. With a bang, Chu Feng stepped on Luo Shang's body and descended from the sky. He stepped on Luo Shang's body and landed on the ground, creating a human-shaped pit. Luo Shang groaned. Blood sprayed from his mouth and nose, his hair was disheveled, and his body was covered in blood. He was extremely miserable. The core disciple of the primal chaotic deity palace is nothing more than this. Chu Feng lowered his head and looked down at him. In the distance, Ing Wudi's eyes were brimming with tears. He felt that Chu Feng was giving him a taste of his own medicine and helping him vent his anger. As expected, he had a true temperament, a true hero, and a good man. He was 10 times, no, 100 times better than that Wu Luanhui. Chapter 865. Everyone was shocked. Luo Shang was so powerful and arrogant, yet in the end, he was taken care of by the great demon Chu Feng just like that. Chu Feng stepped on him as he descended from the sky and stomped him on the ground. Demon Chu Feng was truly a mess of ferocity. Many people felt that he was extremely abnormal. Luo Shang's arrogance just now was based on his powerful strength and not an empty frame. But now, he was so miserable. He was almost beaten to death by the great demon Chu Feng, completely suppressed and stomped on the ground. Many of the old women from damning Pure Land revealed extraordinary splendor in their eyes. This son-in-law was too tyrannical. He was truly an unrivaled demon of a generation. No, he was an unrivaled king of a generation. Some old women immediately changed their words and secretly instructed that they weren't allowed to call Chu Feng a great demon anymore. Instead, they should call him the present age's young divine king. This was naturally a kind of honorific. Only those who were unrivaled in the same generation and were invincible without any opponents could be worthy of such a title. There wouldn't be one in many generations. That was because very few people could absolutely suppress all the heaven-bestowed geniuses of an era. If damning Pure Land really chose such a Tao companion for Qin Luoyin, they would be in an invincible position in the long years to come. With such a fierce person protecting them, who would dare to provoke and challenge them? It would already be pretty good if they didn't exterminate other orthodoxies. So much so that with this great demon overseeing things, no, with this great divine King Chu in the sect, he wouldn't be afraid of the 10 greats when he matured and would lead damning Pure Land to extreme glory. For a moment, damning Pure Land's internal department was rapidly discussing in secret. Most people agreed and felt that Chu Feng was a good match. They were a match made in heaven with Qin Luoyin. Everyone, what should we do if the people from the primal chaotic deity palace attack? Said an elder who held an opposing opinion. There were a few people who didn't like Chu Feng from the beginning. What are you afraid of? The will of the Yin Realm's universe prevents the experts from the primal chaos from coming over. If a saint can come over, then it's already too late. The so-called gods have never been able to come over since ancient times. Many people guessed that this was the protection of the universe's will. The most miserable one was Luo Shang. He was trampled on by Chu Feng. Many of his bones were broken and it was difficult for him to move. His mouth, nose, and ears were all overflowing with blood. He had a portion of the quasi-sage's origin, but he still wasn't a match and was defeated. Summon heavenly deity. He muttered in a low voice, inaudible. He used soul light to display his race's forbidden secret technique. Chu Feng heard it but didn't stop it. He had always been curious about the deity race's deity summoning and deity descent. What was going on? Where did the so-called deity's bone come from? This time, he wanted to get to the bottom of things. He stepped on this person and stared at the void. He opened his fiery eyes and wanted to see through the most fundamental things. In the void, a golden bone fragment appeared. That was the interweaving of order, giving birth to terrifying energy. Then, it flew over with extreme speed and rushed into Luo Shang's body, causing his body to erupt with a blinding ball of light. Without a doubt, his aura was rapidly becoming stronger. Just how did this happen? There's order energy in the void that matches the deity race? If I listen to their summons, why can't I summon the fairy realm? Chu Feng muttered. This statement made the group of spectators dizzy. What was this person thinking? At the same time, they also felt great Demon Chu's power and self-confidence. He was still thinking about other things at such a critical juncture. Ingwudi opened his mouth and dispelled his doubts. Brother Chu, our quasi-immortal race, has studied the so-called deity descent and deity summoning. According to our ancient ancestor, it should be an abnormally terrifying character from the deity race who once carved his own law imprint in the Een realm universe. That's why once the race's disciples use the deity breathing technique and display the corresponding secret technique, they can summon deity summoning. In fact, this is the embodiment of the order imprinted by the most powerful deity in the past. Chu Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of powerful technique was this? To imprint one's own law imprint in a universe, making it immortal and everlasting throughout the ages. It might be related to the supreme powerhouses of the Yang realm. Countless years ago, there was a powerhouse who accidentally entered the Een realm universe and left behind his own imprint. The old man from damning Pure Land who had lived the longest, the old golden body expert who was Jun Tuo's sworn friend in life and death, opened his mouth at this time and revealed this secret. Yes, the elders of my race have also mentioned this legend. Ingwudi informed him that he now had an extremely favorable impression of Chu Feng. Demon Chu, human traffickers, they could all go to one side. In his eyes, this kind of infamy was nothing at all. Bang! Luo Shang's deity summoning was successful. All kinds of golden bone fragments formed from energy and order appeared. They swooped down from the void at extreme speed and fused into his body. Demon, go to hell! He put his life on the line and still wanted to make a comeback. However, under Chu Feng's suppression, not to mention that he wasn't a genuine quasi-saint, even if a genuine old monster quasi-saint came, Chu Feng still had the domain to suppress him. Bang! Chu Feng stomped down with his foot, and with a crack, Luo Shang immediately met a tragic end. His spine was broken, and he let out a blood-curdling screech. The energy he had just gathered dispersed again. Useless chickens and pottery dogs, don't make a fool of yourself. After that, Chu Feng kicked him into midair, causing blood to spurt out from his 7 apertures and his body to be covered in cracks. This was the result of Chu Feng showing mercy. Otherwise, he would have directly exploded from the kick. Chu Feng used the domain technique and forcibly extracted a glaring ball of light from his body. It possessed extremely tyrannical energy waves, and this was a part of the quasi-saint's origin. Chu Feng quickly summoned a jade box and sealed it. After losing this ball of origin, Luo Shang's aura suddenly decreased, and his so-called strength dropped by a large margin. Although he was still at the golden Arhat level, it was nothing to be worried about. At this moment, the starry sky was boiling. That was because someone had previously posted the scene of Ingwudi being heavily injured and being trampled on by Luo Shang to some platforms, causing a huge sensation. Extra! Luo Shang, an expert from the primal chaotic deity palace, has descended upon the Een realm universe and beaten the genius of the quasi-saint race into submission. He's sweeping away everything before him. Apparently, the people in the universe didn't know what happened later and were still paying attention to the shocking change not long ago. That was because damning Pure Land didn't allow a live broadcast this time, and no one dared to touch the bad luck. Only a few people quietly took photos and posted them. This is too shocking. Are the people from the outerverse so powerful? Even a young expert like Ingwudi was defeated so miserably. How terrifying! The starry sky was shaken, and every race was discussing it. It caused a huge commotion, and some old monsters from the quasi-saint race were so anxious that they wanted nothing more than to rush to damning Pure Land immediately. Everyone, it's going to be lively now. This Luo Shang is going for Qin Luoyin, and at the same time, he wants to kill Demon King Chu Feng. And now, Chu Feng is in damning Pure Land. People everywhere were in heated discussion. At this moment, the deity race was the most excited. The main family of the primal chaotic universe had finally dispatched a core disciple. He was ridiculously powerful and actually had the power of a quasi-saint. In the past year, the deity race had been very sullen. They had been crippled, and their ranking had fallen to around 250. The entire race was unstable, and many elders were bleeding in their hearts. Good. Our main family of the deity race has finally arrived. This time, Demon King Chu is dead for sure. After that, many evolvers from the deity race and other races immediately opened a super wormhole and flocked toward damning Pure Land. They wanted to see the most intense scene. They came very quickly. After entering damning Pure Land, the deity race's team immediately burst into laughter. Haha, Divine Son Luo Shang, welcome to our universe. You're so exceptional and peerless. Who can compete with you? You should be suppressing Demon King Chu now, right? The people from the deity race were all looking forward to it, because they had received news in advance that Luo Shang had the power of a quasi-saint. How could Chu Feng block him? After that, they were met with tragedy. After entering, they just happened to see Luo Shang being beaten up by Chu Feng. He was almost about to explode. How is this possible? This kind of scene was transmitted to the cosmos, and it shook the universe once again. The evolvers from every race were dumbfounded. Chu Feng had beaten up a terrifying genius from the deity race? In damning Pure Land, Chu Feng opened his mouth and said, "Brother Ing, come." After losing his quasi-saint origin, this is his true strength. Go and compete with him. It'll be a fair duel. Immediately, Ingwudi's heart was warm, and even his eyes were slightly red. This Chu Feng was really a good friend and a true hero. He was looking for a way out of this embarrassing situation for him, and was extremely good to him. He walked forward, looked at Chu Feng, and said, "I've decided. If the elders of the race insist on marrying my sister, I'll support Brother Chu Feng." He was very excited and full of emotion as he spoke. He was very grateful to Chu Feng and felt that Chu Feng was warm-hearted and was a good person worthy of his sister. Chu Feng was speechless. In the end, he patted his shoulder and said, "Wudi, you're a good person." What could he say? Right now, his brother-in-law was too pleasing to the eye. It was truly a rare passion, but it was fine as long as he didn't risk his life when he found out the truth in the future. Ing Xiaoxiao looked at Chu Feng suspiciously. The more she looked, the more intimate and familiar she felt. She almost called him brother-in-law, but she held back. If she called him carelessly, she reckoned that the elders of the race would be furious. At the same time, her sister would also take half her life to fix her. There was no suspense in the battle between Ingwudi and Luo Shang. It was said to be a fair duel, but how could Chu Feng let him suffer a loss? He had long since beaten Luo Shang half to death. In reality, if the two were to fight in perfect condition, Ingwudi could also win without using the quasi-saint origin. The curtains fell on a great battle just like that. Chu Feng tried to search for Luo Shang's soul light, but in the end, he failed. There was a powerful restriction, and he decapitated him with one slash. Luo Shang turned into a large silver fish that was more or less the same as the others from the deity race. Ah! The vision of those from the deity race who rushed over darkened. Each and every one of them was incomparably distressed. Such a powerful core disciple from their own clan was killed right away. This made their hearts feel stifled and uncomfortable. Who could still keep this demon in check? If it wasn't for the elders of the damning Pure Land secretly transmitting their voices to him, telling him to restrain himself and to think a little more about the damning Pure Land situation, he would have almost annihilated the rest of the deity race's troops. Who else wants to fight me? Chu Feng swept his gaze over the crowd and called out to everyone. At this moment, everyone seemed to have woken up from a dream. If no one was the demon Chu Feng's opponent, Qin Luoyin would have to marry him in the end. When the news of this place spread to the outside world, the young geniuses from every race in the starry skies couldn't remain calm. In the end, did Qin Luoyin really want to feed the demon with her body? When they thought of this ending, many people wanted to vomit blood. Previously, everyone felt that the conditions Goddess Qin had tossed out were too simple and easy to accomplish. Many people could kill the demon Chu Feng, who had already fallen behind his peers. Who would have thought that he would have the last laugh? If no one challenges me, it means that I'm the final victor. Yes, I'll become Luoyin's Tao companion. Chu Feng shamelessly called himself a Tao companion. Goddess Qin, please change your decision. You can't marry that demon. The starry skies were about to explode with clamor. Everyone couldn't accept this result. How can this be? That's a great demon and a notorious human trafficker. How can he be worthy of Goddess Qin? Everyone was in an uproar. Then, Ingwudi saw the comments on various platforms and couldn't take it anymore. His face darkened. The warm-hearted divine King Chu is my, Ingwudi's, best friend. Don't blame me for being impolite if anyone dares to defame him. You're making an enemy out of my Ing family. In an instant, many places were silent for a moment. Then, they flared up again. What warm-hearted? He's a human trafficker, okay? He's a great demon. How did he become a divine king? Everyone couldn't take it anymore. They felt that Ingwudi's position was too skewed and biased. He was lying through his teeth. What do you think, Brother Yuan? Do I make sense? Ingwudi asked Yuan Shiqing. Yuan Shi had become the crown prince of the origin demon race. In view of the turbulent undercurrents in the universe, these two races were preparing to form an alliance. They even wanted to unite by marriage. As a result, Yuan Shiqing braced himself and cleared Chu Feng's name. That's right. Brother Chu has a true temperament and is warm-hearted. We just had a lot of misunderstandings in the past. Oh my God, even the people of the origin demon race are shameless. How can this human trafficker be considered warm-hearted? Then wouldn't I be the reincarnation of a good person from 9 lifetimes? Many people in the starry skies were cursing. Even if these two were from the 10 greats, they couldn't distort the truth. It was too much. That's right. I, the tyrant godhead, also think that the title of warm-hearted divine King Chu isn't bad. Ouyang Feng also joined in the chaos with a despicable smile. Don't quarrel. You've all misunderstood Chu Feng. Actually, he's warm-hearted and has a sincere temperament. An old monster from damning Pure Land also stood out to clear Chu Feng's name. This was necessary because they had chosen Chu Feng as Qin Luoyin's Tao companion. They were having a headache over his identity as a demon because he had too many debts on him. Now, someone from the 10 greats was helping Chu Feng wash away his stain, so damning Pure Land naturally had to support him. This world is too dark. Even human traffickers have become warm-hearted and the great demon is considered sincere. In other words, everything he did in the past was the result of his warm-heartedness and his sincerity? Heavens, please send down heavenly lightning to strike those people to death. They're too dark and have no moral principles. The starry skies were in chaos. There were even people who questioned why the great demon Chu Feng had transformed into divine King Chu. Damning Pure Land immediately replied, in the past, a person who could suppress his peers could be called a young divine king. Which one of you thinks you're a match for the warm-hearted Chufeng? Motherf *Ker, they didn't even forget to add warm-heartedness to this kind of explanation. They were clearly trying to prove it. They were too shameless. Many people cursed. Supremely righteous Luanhui King, where are you? Hurry up and kill this warm-hearted divine King Chu. In the starry skies, a group of people were calling out to the supremely righteous Luanhui King to return. No matter how unconvinced everyone was, they couldn't change damning Pure Land's private decision. They already saw Chu Feng as their prospective son-in-law, but they just didn't dare to announce it in public. That was because, according to the rules, whoever could defeat Chu Feng within a month was qualified to come to damning Pure Land to marry. Chu Feng, the young divine king, the waves behind truly surpass the waves in front. His heroic bearing is flourishing, and he's in the golden years of his youth. An old monster from damning Pure Land sighed. Afterwards, a group of old monsters from damning Pure Land reached an agreement with Chu Feng in private. They would hold a grand wedding for him and Qin Luoyin in the Pure Land a month later. During this period, Chu Feng could travel around the universe and temporarily not stay in the Pure Land. Chu Feng was suspicious. These people had chosen him, so why did they send him away? In reality, there were also people from damning Pure Land who were puzzled. They felt that this would easily lead to variables. Only a few core old monsters were sighing and saying that there was nothing they could do about it. What's the situation? Luoyin is already pregnant. If Great Demon Chu knows the truth, he might fall out with us and become a great enemy. He'll fight with his life on the line. An old woman mentioned this problem with a face full of worry. Even now, she still didn't know who the father of the child in Qin Luoyin's arms was because Qin Luoyin had always kept her mouth shut and only told a female saint. Now, the female saint was already in the chaotic universe. What? The other old women turned pale with fright. Someone cried out involuntarily, "Are they letting Great Demon Chu be the one to take over?" They realized that the problem was huge. They couldn't let Great Demon Chu be the one to cheat on them. Otherwise, that fellow would go crazy and they reckoned that something big would happen. So, we must send Chu Feng away now. We must solve the problem of the child within this month. Quickly ask Luoyin what's going on and who the child's father is. We can't hide it anymore. We've already asked, but she still isn't willing to tell us. However, her spirit isn't bad and her mood is calm. She even has a faint smile on her face and isn't worried at all. After that, a group of old monsters revealed strange expressions. This was too goddamn strange. I suddenly have an ominous premonition. That Demon Chu and Wu Luanhui shouldn't be. Why do I feel that there's a great karma between them? I also feel that there's some connection. How did Great Demon Chu Feng's strength suddenly increase out of thin air? Heavens, these two. I suddenly feel like my head is about to explode. If there's really a connection, then that's really too shameful. I want to strangle them to death. Chapter 866. The group of old women from damning Pure Land felt their heads hurt. Qin Luoyin was pregnant, and they wanted Demon King Chu Feng to be her successor. This was equivalent to playing with fire. A single mishap would result in self-immolation, and an evil fire would burn into damning Pure Land. At the same time, the group of old monsters made all kinds of associations. They keenly sensed that Chu Feng and Wu Luanhui seemed to have an indescribable connection. They simply trembled with fear. Cuckold Demon King Chu. This pot is too thick, too heavy, and too green. It's simply unbearable. What a terrifying pot. In damning Pure Land, the group of old fellows inhaled cold air. Each and every one of them had a grave expression as they gnashed their teeth. Who was the child's father? He was too much of a bastard. They really wanted to know which bastard the child's father was. They wanted to strangle him directly. In the end, I, who didn't know the truth, shed tears. Two of damning Pure Land's most direct descendants were waiting on them. After hearing some of the truth, their hearts were dripping blood and tears were about to flow out. Who's the child's father? This scoundrel demon. I want to kill him. The two youths' vision darkened. They were direct descendants of heaven illuminators and lived here with damning Pure Land as their home. Now they felt bitter in their hearts. Forget it. In fact, the one who should feel the most heartache is Demon King Chu Feng. Let him bear this vexing matter in silence. In the end, a youth spoke to comfort his companion. That's true. I feel sorry for Demon King Chu Feng for 3 seconds. After that, there was a conclusion here. All kinds of arrangements were made to help Qin Luoyin conceal the truth of her pregnancy and quickly solve the child's problem. Meanwhile, Chu Feng was asked to temporarily avoid arousing suspicion and leave damning Pure Land. He could go anywhere as long as he wasn't on this planet. Chu Feng pondered for a long time but still couldn't figure out what was going on. Did the people of damning Pure Land choose him, or did they think of some trick? It felt a little strange. That was because when some old fellows looked at him, there was both recognition and sympathy. Some even patted his shoulder and said, "You're a good child." Chu Feng had a puzzled expression on his face. He wasn't considered polite when he attacked the damning Pure Land, but in the end, they actually had this kind of attitude. They were too friendly. In particular, with his keenest intuition, he discovered that some old monsters seemed to sympathize with him. What was the meaning of this? This was natural. Some old freaks looked at Chu Feng and already saw him as a scapegoat, a taker. They felt that such a powerful great demon Chu was actually living very miserably. When he found out the truth one day, would he feel very miserable? I, the human trafficker, was wrong. I, great demon Chu, was also wrong. I am the divine king of a generation. Why do I need your sympathy? Motherf *****. Chu Feng secretly cursed. He actually saw pity and pity in the depths of someone's eyes. It really made him speechless. Looks like I'm really too kind. I have to think about my own methods in the future. It's not good to be too kind. It's worth reflecting on. He actually started to reflect on himself seriously. If the group of old freaks from the damning Pure Land knew what he was thinking, they definitely wouldn't reveal that kind of expression even if they were beaten to death. Great Demon Chu was already savage enough now. If he were to reflect on himself, it would simply be unimaginable in the future. It would definitely be so vexing that it would be unbearable. The group of people sent Chu Feng off. They couldn't wait for him to set off immediately. Chu Feng hadn't said anything yet when Ing Wudi was dissatisfied. How is this the way to treat a guest? My brother Chu Feng is honest and kind. He's not willing to fuss over this, but I can't stand it anymore. Is there anyone who forcefully sends a guest off? At this time, they had already arrived at the mountain gate. The people outside could already broadcast the situation here live. After this scene, and these words were transmitted to the starry sky, the group of people wanted to curse. They had really seen a ghost today. The ferocious demon Chu had actually become a model of honesty and kindness. Was there anything more outrageous than this? I understand the damning Pure Land. If it were me, I would also send him off as soon as possible. Such a fiend staying in the Pure Land will simply affect the peace and tranquility there. The temperaments of both sides clash, so he must be sent away. They didn't send such a great demon away and kept him for the new year. What kind of Motherf * king honesty is this? This is simply destroying words. From now on, if you want to say anyone is savage or evil, just say that he's honest and kind. In the starry sky, the group of people cursed and felt vexed. This world was too crazy. Even human traffickers could emit a divine radiance. It was somewhat heart-wrenching. After that, everyone saw Chu Feng dawdling with the old freak from the damning Pure Land. He was truly reluctant to part and had deep feelings for him. He wasn't willing to leave. The group of people was speechless. What kind of situation was this? F***ck, Great Demon Chu is really thick-skinned. He's asking for travel expenses from the damning Pure Land. He says he's penniless and wants to wander in the universe but can't open a wormhole. Is this extortion before he leaves? What a valiant Great Demon Chu! Oh my heart hurts. Under these circumstances, the damning Pure Land is still considering choosing him as their son-in-law? The heavenly Tao is 2F** king unfair. In the universe, the expressions on some people's faces were as if they were constipated. They wanted to curse and swear. Before long, people saw that the damning Pure Land really did give Chu Feng travel expenses. This made his face full of smiles. There was no need to think too much. The travel expenses were definitely generous. The group of people wanted to curse again. After that, people saw Chu Feng supporting some people and bringing some injured people out of the damning Pure Land. He was very enthusiastic. People were suspicious. What was going on? This demon had changed. He was actually so happy to help people. There was a world of difference between him and the past. Virtuous Nephew Chu is really kind-hearted and kind. You're even taking care of a group of fellow Taoists before you leave. An old freak from the damning Pure Land sighed with emotion as he praised him. It wasn't that they wanted to flatter him, but that Chu Feng's current brilliance wasn't enough. If the damning Pure Land wanted to whitewash his name, they had to seize every opportunity. It's only right that we cultivators help each other, Chu Feng said righteously. The others were filled with deep veneration. When they looked at him, their attitudes were completely different. Only Ouyang Feng looked on coldly from the sidelines. He saw through the trick. Didn't those people Chu Feng supported challenge him before and were defeated by him? Ouyang Feng immediately knew what he was talking about. What kind of F** king benevolent heart and pure heart? To hell with it, cultivators of our generation should support one another. He knew what Chu Feng was thinking. This was based on the principle of not wasting things. He was personally taking away the spoils of war because he was going to sell them later. Many thanks, Brother Chu. Those who were supported and brought out of the mountain gate by Chu Feng still spoke politely even though they didn't appreciate Chu Feng's kindness in their hearts. It's what I should do. Don't be polite. We'll leave together in a while. Chu Feng smiled. Ouyang Feng was speechless. This was a classic case of selling people out and still wanting people to thank him. As expected, it was very Chu Feng. Ing Wudi sighed and said, as expected, Brother Chu is kind-hearted. These people challenged you before. Their words were disrespectful and their methods were fierce. As expected, Brother Chu is pure and kind. Everyone has misunderstood you in the past. Chu Feng revealed an embarrassed expression. In reality, he wasn't pretending. He was really embarrassed. He only wanted to sell people out in secret and collect some travel fees from those powerful races. In the end, he was praised like this. He felt a little guilty. Chu Feng, I didn't misjudge you. Your heart is truly pure and kind, and you can reach heaven with a single thought. Before they parted, an old monster with a very high status in damning Pure Land gave him an extremely high evaluation that shocked everyone. So much so that many people in the starry sky revealed astonished expressions. Brother Chu, I'll take my leave here. Brother Chu, the mountains will never change and the rivers will always flow. We'll meet again in the future. A group of people who were supported out bid farewell to Chu Feng. They had quite a bit of resentment toward him in their hearts. After being defeated by him, their faces weren't very good. This meant that they would forever lose the qualifications to walk together with the goddess in their hearts. However, Chu Feng was very enthusiastic. He walked over and patted their shoulders one by one. You're all injured. It's very dangerous to travel alone. I'll send you off. Wasn't this enthusiasm too much? It made the group speechless. Why was there a need to be like this? No need. Someone immediately refused. However, Chu Feng was too enthusiastic. He put his arm around their shoulders and directly brought them on their way. Hey, what's going on? Even those with the slowest reactions felt that something wasn't right. Even Wudi was a little speechless. A strange expression appeared on his face as he vaguely suspected something. Chu Feng said, I feel that all of you are injured. I'll only be at ease this way if I send you all to your doorsteps one by one. In addition, I'll also travel the universe in passing to see the vastness and beauty of this starry sky. I'll comprehend the marvelous principles of the universe as well as the strangeness and extraordinariness of this world. Everyone, please be at ease. I'll definitely send you home safely. What's he talking about? I won't be at ease if I make you follow me. Is he going to pay a visit and extort money? A few quick-witted people immediately understood his intentions. At this time, even those from damning Pure Land couldn't continue watching. The faces of some old monsters were flushed. They really were having a fever. Just now, they were still praising him for having a pure heart and reaching heaven with a single thought. This was simply unparalleled. In the end, this demon had a warm-hearted appearance, but the old monsters had more or less guessed what he was going to do. As expected, an old monster let out a long sigh. He really wanted to say that a leopard couldn't change its spots, but he swallowed it in the end. After all, he wanted to help Chu Feng whitewash his name, so there was no need to tear him down. Since Chu Feng wants to escort you back, then it'll definitely be very safe. He's really sincere and loyal. Alright, you guys can go on your way. An old monster from damning Pure Land spoke. Then, he quickly ordered people to close the mountain gate. He didn't want to get involved anymore as his face was burning. Some of those who had been kidnapped by Chu Feng were dumbstruck. They really wanted to say, damning Pure Land, don't you feel guilty? How dare you say such words? Of course, not everyone could see through this immediately. At the very least, many people in the starry skies were nodding their heads and praising Chu Feng for being different. He was a good person to the very end and wanted to send people to their doorstep. As expected, he had a pure heart. But those who had seen through it all cursed loudly. This human trafficker was too hateful. He wanted to bring his spoils of war from the Pure Land before leaving. His overflowing ferocity was hopeless. Goodbye, uncle. Ouyang Feng couldn't wait to bid farewell. Who would be the happiest to leave damning Pure Land? Naturally, it was Ouyang Feng, the ancient golden body expert who had a good relationship with ancient Saint Jun Tua pulled him and chattered incessantly. He touched his head, his face, and even his swan neck and black tortoise shell. This made Ouyang Feng want to stomp his feet and beat him up. He really couldn't stand it. Come, brother Yuan, come over and lend me a hand. Help me escort these Dao friends on their way. Chu Feng called out to Wudi, the Yuan Shirching siblings, and the others. Wudi was very happy to help. If he found someone pleasing to the eye, he would really support his various actions. And Chu Feng also found him to be very pleasing to the eye. There was no one else like this younger brother-in-law who understood him too well. Not bad. Only Ying Xiaoxiao curled her lips and became increasingly suspicious at the same time. She saw that Chu Feng was too intimate and familiar. There were several times when she wanted to call him brother-in-law, but she held back for fear of provoking her brother Wudi. Yuan Shirching, Yuan, and the Vermilion Bird Fairy were rather speechless. They braced themselves and came over to help. Even if they didn't look at Chu Feng's face, they still had to look at Wudi's face. There was a heated discussion in the starry skies like boiling water. However, Chu Feng didn't care. He gazed at the resplendent starry skies and said, "Old friends from all over the universe's starry skies, are you guys ready? I want to tour the entire universe. Those who were sold by me back then and those who interacted with me back then, I miss you guys very much. I'm coming. A bosom friend in the sea is like a neighbor in the world. I've come to see you guys." What bosom friend in the sea? A group of acquaintances from all over the starry skies wanted to curse him to death. Ouyang Feng laughed mischievously. He could already imagine that kind of scene. No matter where he went, he would meet familiar geniuses. When the time came, it would be wonderful if he greeted them. It could really be said that there was no one under the heavens who didn't know him. Chapter 867. In the cold universe, it was silent and lifeless. Even the starry sky was dim, and the starlight seemed to be suffused with an aura of death. It made people feel despair, cold, and gloomy. There was a special place in front. It was known as the Realm universe's most ancient forbidden land, and also the most dangerous and terrifying cosmic abyss. There was no sound there and no sense of time passing. It was terrifyingly dark, and a cosmic abyss lay in front, as if it had cut off the universe and yin and yang. This place was called the Great Abyss. Darkness and deathly stillness were eternal themes. Throughout history, it was unknown just how many supreme experts had gone out to explore, but none of them returned. Their blood was shed within the darkness. According to legend, an expert in the universe billions of years ago, the dragon race's primogenitor had declined because of the Great Abyss and finally passed away. Of course, before he died, he had seen a corner of the future and realized where the Yang Realm seed he had been pursuing all his life was. He left a message for future generations pointing to Kunlun. But at that time, no one knew where the so-called Kunlun was or where the Yang Realm seed was. Tens of millions of years ago, the demon ancestor was also incomparably powerful and was known as the universe's #1 expert. He had also entered the Great Abyss and didn't die, but in the end, he declined and perished. 20 million years ago, a god appeared in the Realm universe, but after coming to the depths of the Great Abyss, divine blood splattered everywhere. In a day, a god collapsed. The Great Abyss became the Realm universe's #1 forbidden land. This place was too mysterious. No one knew what was inside this cosmic abyss. Anyone who came here died, not even the universe's #1 expert. In ancient times, Yao Yao's grandfather had passed by here and accidentally obtained the robbery induction breathing technique nearby. Although he didn't enter the Great Abyss, he didn't meet a good end. In the end, he went crazy and lost his nature. He was still muddle-headed to this day, and even missed the ancient battle on Earth. No one dared to approach. Even the heaven illuminators were terrified. If they really wanted to go in, they thought it would be difficult to survive and that they would definitely die. Some people even speculated that there were heavenly venerables and Taoist masters in the depths of the Great Abyss. There were mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and the weakest was a god. Of course, this was only someone's imagination and couldn't be taken seriously. The Great Abyss, which had been silent for countless years, was a bit abnormal today. There was still no sound, but a white light appeared, clear and bright. Upon closer inspection, it was a woman, extremely indistinct. She wore snow-white clothes, actually emerging from the Great Abyss. Unfortunately, that place was too dark, even the fragments of time distorting and deforming. Finally, the woman gradually broke free from the abyss and emerged from the first forbidden area of the Realm universe. She was completely silent, like a ghost that had struggled free from a swamp. She was extremely beautiful. Her figure was tall and slender like a divine lotus. She stood tall and slender, graceful and elegant. Before her face could be seen clearly, just her figure and that kind of tranquil aura alone could be considered extraordinary. She was like a female immortal that descended into this world. Suddenly, she turned around to face the direction of the starlight. Her face was revealed, perfect and flawless, pure like jade. Only her eyes were empty, but there was an indescribable divine radiance in the depths of her eyes from time to time. If Chu Feng was here, he would definitely be horrified and jump in fright, because this woman was too similar to a certain person. There was simply no difference between them. Too much like Yao Yao. Her black hair was like a waterfall, her figure was absolutely beautiful, and her face was flawless. There wasn't a single flaw to be found on her body. At this moment, her body was glowing, sparkling, and translucent. It was even more exquisite and snow-white than suet jade. Out of instinct, she was circulating an extremely profound breathing technique. In a split second, all kinds of cosmic energy flew over. Including the starlight, they converged from all directions like countless waterfalls and entered her body. Upon closer inspection, her snow-white dress was stained with scarlet blood. Although it had long since dried up, it still looked very bleak and beautiful. Moreover, there were palm prints on the dress, and some parts had already been torn. If there were ancient experts here, they would definitely be extremely shocked. This white dress was once the #1 battle suit in the universe and had once been worn by the most beautiful woman. After quietly circulating the breathing technique, her eyes became empty. Then, like a free fall, she slowly sank into the great abyss. She turned into white light, turned into white dots, and finally disappeared completely. From beginning to end, this place was deathly silent. There wasn't a single sound. The darkness and emptiness of the great abyss made people tremble. At the same time, Yao Yao, who was in seclusion on Mount Kunlun on Earth, suddenly opened her eyes. Divine multicolored light split the sky in her eyes and multicolored soul light surged. In the blink of an eye, her aura rose sharply and formed an energy vortex that engulfed the firmament. For a moment, the laws resonated and divine chains of order hummed softly. They interweaved in the void and performed. In addition, her body was filled with the fragrance of divine medicine and powerful yang qi. However, at this moment, Yao Yao was horrified. Her spiritual body felt cold as though it had a physical body. She experienced a feeling that made her hair stand on end. Her heart was heavy and she felt incomparably stifled. When was the last time she had such an experience? It was the ancient Earth era. Not long after, a great war broke out on Earth. It suffered the joint attack of various races. Blood flowed like rivers and corpses piled up into mountains. Almost all the saints on Earth were killed, and the pure-blooded races were nearly wiped out. She immediately called Lady Shi, Yellow Cattle, Black Yak, Old Donkey, and the others. The situation isn't right. All of you retreat and travel far away quietly. Use the demonic ancestral cauldron's protection and leave Earth temporarily. Don't forget to bring along Chu Feng's parent. This was Yao Yao's reminder and warning. She had an instinctive intuition that something big was about to happen. After saying these words, she climbed the heavenly vine on Mount Kunlun alone and quietly went into seclusion. She experienced the universe and questioned herself in the quietest state. Her soul subconsciously resonated. In the end, Yao Yao took out a sparkling and translucent immortal gold. Since ancient times, a strand of her will had resided in it and nurtured an immortal aura. Until today, her soul light had recovered and become stronger. However, there were some knots in her heart that she couldn't let go. During the last battle in ancient times, she killed so many people of her generation that no one dared to raise their head. No matter how many heaven-bestowed geniuses joined forces in the universe, they were swept away by her. Numbers weren't a problem at all because she looked down on everyone. But in the end, she was killed by a heaven illuminator. In the end, a strand of her will escaped. What about her physical body? Even if her flesh exploded and her physical body disintegrated, there should still be something left behind. That was because her father had left her a precious treasure that could withstand several fatal attacks from a heaven illuminator. However, she didn't find anything in the end. A strand of my will and the immortal gold. I want to uncover the secrets related to myself. I can feel my soul light trembling and ringing. What's going on today? Yao Yao asked herself. After that, she held the immortal gold in her hand and closed her eyes. She sensed it attentively and asked her heart. The next moment, the imprint of the past and the call of the present made her body sway. She saw a pitch-black and boundless place. It was a cosmic abyss with a white light bobbing up and down. It had a fatal attraction to her. Ancient times. My memories come to an abrupt end here. After that, Yao Yao got up. Her soul light was still throbbing. She didn't know why she felt uneasy today. The immortal gold will guide me on the path forward. Yao Yao spoke softly and asked her heart again. After that, she held the immortal gold in her hand and left Earth just like that. She charged straight into the cosmos and didn't hesitate to open many wormholes. She headed toward a certain ancient place in the cosmos based on her intuition. At the same time, outside the Yin realm universe, in the region closest to the Yang realm in the primal chaos surged. All kinds of small worlds were densely packed together like lone islands drifting in the primal chaos. On this day, a terrifying sound came from the depths of the primal chaos. An ancient road that had been sealed for millions and millions of years was being cleared by someone. It was forcefully connected and turned into a small path once again. Crack! One could see the primal chaos surging in the vicinity of that small path. All kinds of lightning struck down unceasingly. It was extremely terrifying because its power was too great. Even heaven illuminators would be turned into ashes in an instant if they were struck by it. Their bodies and souls would be destroyed. That was primal chaos divine lightning. Even gods would die if they were struck by it, and only black ashes would be left behind. So much so that even stronger evolvers would be killed by the lightning in the primal chaos if they stepped out of this small path and stood in the lightning. There was no suspense. Upon closer inspection, there was some grass around that small path. This was very shocking because they actually saw plants in the primal chaos. This was a terrifying variant. One could imagine how terrifying the evolvers who could clear this ancient small path were. Their divine might was matchless. Finally, they were close. They were about to completely break away from the primal chaos and step out of that small path. They were about to follow one lone island after another and appear in the broken universe. Celestial Venerable, we've really succeeded, someone cried out in surprise and was incomparably excited. Celestial Venerable's magical power is boundless. It's too terrifying. He actually connected the primal chaos and opened up a small path from the Yang realm to the Yin realm universe. His heavenly art is unrivaled. The ones who spoke were a few young people. They were all very powerful themselves. Order runes were faintly flashing outside their bodies and densely covering the surface of their bodies. This level of strength was extremely extraordinary and abnormally powerful. I can only send you up to here. Return to the Yang realm at the appointed time. This small path will close and can't be maintained for long. An old Taoist whose entire body was all skin and bones spoke, but his shriveled old skin was golden. It was extremely strange and terrifying. When he spoke, the primal chaos exploded. All types of natural laws and order were obliterated. The place where he stood was a pure land, impervious to all tribulations, true body everlasting. It was too terrifying. Celestial Venerable, aren't you going to the Yin realm with us? A youngster asked in shock. They always thought that this Celestial Venerable was going to cross the sea of primal chaos and descend into the Yin realm. There are strange things in the Yin realm. It isn't suitable for me to stay for too long. You all have to be careful and not be careless. Come back quickly. This old Taoist reminded seriously. I heard that there are powerful figures who are going to bring their disciples over and stay here for a long time to search for the legendary seed. Why are you leaving so soon? In their eyes, this Celestial Venerable's magical force was boundless. The place where he stood was a heavenly country. As a powerful figure, there was nothing he couldn't do. Why would he care about this gloomy and cold cosmos? This place is divided into several universes, all of them belonging to the underworld or the Yin realm. There are some regions that are extremely strange. Someone had previously seen a few celestial venerable corpses in a dark cosmos canyon. They were extremely miserable, so you cannot underestimate them. The old Taoist warned seriously. Then, he turned around and took a step out. Primal chaos, divine lightning erupted, and the natural laws of the void were annihilated. The symbols of order broke apart. He disappeared with a single step just like that. He was extremely fearful of the Yin realm, returning to the Yang realm with the fastest speed possible. Chapter 868. The primal chaos surged and divine lightning exploded. The heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. This winding ancient path in the primal chaos was gently swaying, as if it would collapse at any time. They no longer spoke. They had finally arrived at the Yin realm and could now move unhindered through the underworld. They felt excited as they looked down on this gloomy and somewhat rumored declining world. It was because they could obtain great benefits in the Yin realm. The pure Yang also needed some kind of material from the Yin realm to make up for it. It could make them even more terrifying. Yin realm, welcome our arrival. They walked forward. Some of their expressions were cold, some were smiling, and some were incomparably indifferent. There were also some whose eyes were burning with brilliance. The auras they released were all extremely terrifying. On this small path opened up in the primal chaos, there were dried bloodstains on the ground. Even though it had long become dim, there were still undying natural law symbols that were faintly discernible. These people didn't dare to touch them and carefully made their way around them. It was as if they were avoiding some sort of taboo. In reality, wherever there were bloodstains and divine lightning exploded nearby, it would quickly be obliterated. Those lightning that could kill deities were all melting. Finally, they arrived at the end of the small path and were about to enter a ruined cosmos. However, at this time, when they passed through this region, their expressions suddenly changed. There were corpses of undying divine bodies lying on the ground. It wasn't just one or two people, but rather an expanse. Even though they had dried up and their energy had disappeared, their flesh still didn't break. It was to the extent where even their hair still had luster, existing all this time. Their flesh was covered densely in symbols, all of them the power of order. These should be their seniors. They were all terrifying existences, yet they still died here. There is a green birthmark between this person's brows that looks like a green sun. He is extremely similar to the legendary genius Green Sun Taoist from 5 million years ago. He actually died here. This is too terrifying. The Yin realm isn't simple. We have to be careful. These people were moved. This was the first time their expressions changed. They believed that they had underestimated this underworld earth. Geniuses from millions of years ago who could still leave behind their names were naturally not simple, yet they died here. Those who could be called geniuses in the Yang realm were definitely extremely formidable characters. In other cosmos, they would all be the most powerful experts of their generation. They didn't dare touch these corpses because it was too strange. There was a gray mist swirling around these people's bodies, making them feel fearful. Even though these individuals were extremely powerful, they still felt restraining fear, feeling their fine hairs stand on end. It doesn't matter. They died in an accident. It should be a special substance that rushed out from the primal chaos that corroded them. They just weren't lucky enough. A true netherworld creature is nothing. A disciple of my world's almighty being is enough to destroy this universe. Although I don't want to put it in a bad way, the evolvers in this universe are indeed not even comparable to chickens and dogs. These people were conceited, but this was also the truth. In terms of the level of evolution and civilization in the Yang realm, they were far superior to the underworld and Yin realm. They could indeed look down on others and be high and mighty. It would be abnormal if they treated him as an equal. Just like that, they went on their way, passing through regions where the chaotic energy was gradually thinning. They saw small worlds one after another, as if they were isolated islands. They didn't stop and directly charged into the broken universe adjacent to the primal chaos. In the Een Realm universe, in the starry sky where Chu Feng was. On this day, Chu Feng continuously cursed the Wormhole Express Company for being a bloodsucker. The toll they collected was too black-hearted. Every time they opened a wormhole, they would charge an astronomical amount of cosmic dollars. Wait until my domains reach the Sage Master level. I'll build wormholes everywhere and connect the entire starry sky. Let's see how you'll exploit me then. The people from the Wormhole Express Company were speechless. They really wanted to say, "It's not like you're paying for the toll. Why are you so excited?" If it wasn't for the fact that you were a super VIP with close business dealings, they really wanted to throw you, a great demon, on the way. In truth, those injured companions beside Chu Feng, the young geniuses whom Chu Feng had sworn to protect and escort to their doorstep, were all cursing in their hearts. Their hearts were dripping with blood because their families were responsible for opening the super wormhole. In one day, Chu Feng had already traveled to 9 major planets. They were all famous planets with some powerful races living on them. Otherwise, how could their core disciples have the qualifications to enter damning Pure Land to fight for supremacy? Naturally, they had outstanding strength in order to become Qin Luoyin's Dao companion. However, these races were rather annoyed today. The great demon, Chu Feng, had actually come to pay them a visit. If it wasn't for the fact that they weren't his match, they really wanted to kill him. That was because Chu Feng was escorting disciples to their doorstep to collect protection fees. He didn't do it openly, but all kinds of hints were enough. This was coming to their doorstep to extort them. Ing Wudi, Yuan Shiqing, Yuan Yuan, Ing Xiao Xiao, and the others followed along the whole time. They were somewhat speechless when they saw Chu Feng accepting all kinds of great medicines and huge amounts of cosmic dollars. This was simply robbery. The income was too rapid. Medicine from the quasi-sage realm, tiger bone body refining wine. This is good stuff. Ing Wudi couldn't help but gulp as he spoke. That so-called tiger bone was naturally at the saint level, and the wine was also a rare saint brew. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to brew medicine from the quasi-sage realm that could strengthen the muscles and bones of a quasi-sage. No matter, I'll treat you guys to a drink later. Chu Feng patted his shoulder. Unfortunately, I won't have the fortune to enjoy it if I don't enter the quasi-sage realm. Ing Wudi sighed. We're rich. This is too extravagant. These are all good stuff. Ouyang Feng beamed with joy and excitement. Chu Feng was in charge of protecting them along the way. He handed over some money-gathering tasks to him when they arrived at their doorstep. A 10,000-year-old cinnabar fruit and a draconic tongue. Just now, my heavenly swan's main family really has a deep foundation. I'm too bashful and embarrassed to ask for more great medicines, said Ouyang Feng. There were more than 10 people behind them. They were all geniuses waiting to be escorted to their doorstep. They had followed along the way and personally witnessed how the human traffickers and Tyrant Godhead extorted them. Now that they heard his assistant, Tyrant Godhead, say such things, their faces immediately turned ashen. This black swan was familiar with killing even when facing his main family. If he were to enter their clan, there was no need to think about it. He would inevitably bleed a lot. Brother Chu, why do you need to do this? Is there a need to do this? Ing Wudi asked in a low voice because he felt unnatural all over when he saw Chu Feng coming to collect debts along the way. That was because he was also considered an accomplice as he followed and escorted a group of people. Chu Feng sighed and said, "You don't know my hardships. I need resources to evolve myself, and I have a large group of brothers behind me who are so poor that they only have their underpants left. In this era of great changes in the netherworld cosmos, all we can do is become stronger in order to protect ourselves. I'm destined not to be like you and have a huge clan behind me. I have no choice but to rely on myself." He paused for a moment and then said, "I want to become stronger. Even though I look like a flourishing flower and like the sun in the midday sky now, this is all an illusion and an appearance that can be shattered at any time. Since these people are hostile to me and once targeted me, then I won't be polite and seize some resources from them. For the sake of my rise, for the sake of the future generations on the vital planet I'm on, I won't be forced to resist like me and worry about evolutionary resources. In that case, I'll bear all the infamy and let people judge me as they please. I'll happily be a human trafficker. Ingwudi was filled with deep veneration when he heard this and said, "My brother has great spirit. Your rise concerns the fate of many people. Even if you have to bear eternal infamy, you still won't refuse. I'm touched in my heart and truly admire you." His eyes were burning as he felt that his evolution was too smooth. He had never lacked resources, and it was all because his clan had helped him pave a good path. He felt that this might be the reason why he wasn't as strong as Chu Feng. At the same time, he was slightly moved in his heart and involuntarily felt a sense of admiration for Chu Feng. This might be what was meant by finding a person pleasing to the eye and finding all of his actions pleasing to the eye. Currently, Ingwudi was in such a state. His younger sister, Ing Xiaoxiao, rolled her eyes incessantly over there. Based on her understanding of Chu Feng, it was completely nonsense when she saw him acting so righteously. Ouyang Feng was also rather speechless. Only Chu Feng could talk about extortion and selling people in such a lofty and profound manner. There was no one else like him. Yuan Shiqing and Yuan Yuan also revealed strange looks in their eyes. They felt that Ingwudi had been brainwashed and was truly hopeless. It was another planet. The Fragrant Elephant race was in charge of asking the Wormhole Express Company to open a super wormhole that led straight to the Fragrant Elephant planet. This race was extremely powerful. The so-called Fragrant Elephant crossing the river was used to describe their extraordinary movement skills, and that they could cross the River of Stars. They were completely different from the ordinary elephant race. They were famous for their lightning-like speed. This planet was very large and ancient as it slowly rotated in the starry sky. But when Chu Feng and the others landed, he was immediately horrified. Every time he arrived at an important place of the race, he would quietly use his domain to probe. The Fragrant Elephant race has an old saint overseeing it. It's very powerful. Chu Feng detected that there was a huge soul-light energy ball in the deepest mountain range of the race. It was lying dormant in the belly of the mountain, but wherever the qi of the earth went, Chu Feng could sense it. He grabbed the Fragrant Elephant goddess and used her as a hostage. He said in a low voice, "Let's go." This time, he paid for the super wormhole himself and turned to run. This was what they meant by walking by the river often. How could one not wet their shoes? Were it not for his sharp senses, he would have certainly failed today. Even though he was a domain grandmaster and was confident that he could suppress a quasi-saint, it was hard to say if he were to go up against a true saint. He might suffer a great loss. Chu Feng was very decisive as he immediately retreated. In the depths of the Fragrant Elephant race, an old golden elephant was sitting cross-legged on the ground. There were runes all over his body. He sighed and said, "How cautious." He actually disappeared in an instant. Forget it, if we can't kill this demon, we'll forcefully incur his enmity. If we really wait for him to grow up, it'll be a disaster that will wipe out our race. Then he instructed someone to bring out a jade box, and had someone bring it into the starry sky as a gift to Chu Feng. There was a great medicine inside as a form of friendship. Before long, Chu Feng naturally let the Fragrant Elephant goddess go out of politeness. After experiencing this incident, Chu Feng became even more cautious. He didn't go to the important places of each race again. Instead, he paid the protection fee in advance and began to let the people go. Then Chu Feng began to use what he had gained to roam the universe. He strolled through the famous vital planets in the starry sky, looking for old friends and visiting them. The entire starry sky was in chaos. There were many people who had been sold by Chu Feng. Now that he had really come, they were simply ashamed to see him. Back then, Chu Feng had said on Earth that he would come to the starry sky to visit them one day. At that time, they all thought it was wild talk and a joke. As long as he dared to step out of Earth, he would definitely be beaten to death. Who would have thought that he would really come? Hey, you're the saint child of the flying locust race. Haha, this is really fate. I didn't expect to see you on the first day I arrived on the flying locust planet. The saint child of the flying locust race felt that this was really bad luck. He had originally wanted to seek refuge and hide from Chu Feng when he heard the news. Who would have thought that he would come so quickly? Then, he accompanied Chu Feng the entire time as he toured the flying locust planet. One day later, Chu Feng met the saintess of the Black Snake race on another planet and said, "Hey, Black Snake Saintess, you're really getting sexier and more enchanting. I really shouldn't have let you go back then. With such exquisite curves, it would have been much better if you stayed on Earth. You would have been able to accompany me and accompany me." This made the woman secretly grind her teeth, but she didn't dare to flare up. She could only admit that she was unlucky and unhappily took him on a tour of the Black Snake Giant City. This was because Chu Feng had no fixed location. Using the Wormhole Express Company, he could instantly open a super wormhole and instantly rush to a certain part of the starry sky. It was impossible to guard against him. "Hey, Saintess Mu Xian, long time no see. I've missed you. What the hell? What are you doing here, Devil King? Heavenly Horse Saint Child, I heard that you can now travel 100,000 kilometers in a day. Is that true? I didn't think we would meet again so soon. You were in a hurry during the last auction. I'm a little sorry." Harumph. Then, on another planet, Chu Feng encountered some saints and goddesses. "Goddess Sophie, how come you're becoming more and more beautiful? I really regret letting you go. Why don't we start over?" "Start over? What do you want to do? Do you want to sell me again? Look at what you're saying. You're so slender, elegant, and charming. I can't help but feel sorry for you. My mind is unsteady and I can't open my eyes because of your beauty." In the next 20 days or so, Chu Feng toured the entire cosmos. This group of formerly powerful divine sons and saintesses simply didn't have the face to see anyone. That was because they could still hide in the beginning and leave in advance to avoid meeting guests. But later on, Chu Feng directly shouted through the air that he wanted to go to the planet they were on. He said that he wouldn't leave until he saw them. He threatened that he would tell them the story of the 3 days and 2 nights he spent with them on Earth. Goddamn 3 days and 2 nights. Many people cursed. Wasn't it just being detained? Wasn't it just 3 days and 2 nights that the Devil King Chu Feng wouldn't deliver the goods and wouldn't let them go home? The male evolvers were still fine, but the female evolvers' faces were practically black. If they really allowed Chu Feng to speak nonsense, wouldn't it be ruining their reputations? Therefore, Chu Feng visited his friends every day during these days. He was living a very fulfilling life. "Sigh, you guys still haven't grown up yet. When I come back in another 100 years, you guys should be the mainstays of your race. And when I come back in another 500 years, you guys should be the chiefs of your race. At that time, I'll feel very honored and will definitely be treated with great courtesy. Just think about it, I've sold the most powerful people in the entire cosmos, and spent 3 days and 2 nights with many goddesses and saintesses." Chu Feng sighed emotionally. Immediately, it caused a huge commotion in the sea of stars. Many people really wanted to sew his mouth shut. Stop talking nonsense. This was simply unbearable. Before long, Chu Feng entered a resplendent sea of stars and arrived at an extremely important place, the Immemorial Temple. This was one of the most powerful evolution colleges in the cosmos. There were supreme experts overseeing it from behind. Many saints, goddesses, princes, and so on from various races were sent here to evolve and cultivate. Their names shook the cosmos. After arriving here, Chu Feng saw an old friend, Zi Luan. This little girl first shouted loudly upon seeing him before turning around and running away. However, she was yelled at by Chu Feng to come over. In the end, Zi Luan came back timidly like a bullied little wife. She was very obedient. When he saw this scene, his brother Zi Xiao was so angry that he felt his teeth hurt. He shouted, "You're the great demon Chu Feng. I want to fight you." After that, there was no after that. Zi Xiao was sent flying by Chu Feng with a few slaps. Even though this person was very strong and ranked among the top of the younger generation, he was still not Chu Feng's match. In reality, this wasn't the first time Chu Feng had seen him. They had met in the damning Pure Land's divine hall and entered the foreign realm together. This person was very strong and could be ranked among the top 20 in this generation of the cosmos. Unfortunately, he was still not Chu Feng's match. Next, Zi Luan followed Chu Feng on his journey. Just like on Earth, she wanted to resist, but in the end, she was very obedient and became a maid. Ing Xiaoxiao and Yuan Yuan couldn't help but roll their eyes. This big-eyed, purple-haired girl from the Phoenix race was simply hopeless. She was a classic case of Stockholm Syndrome. After that, Yuan Mo and the great demoness Zhao Qing also returned to their positions. They were found by Chu Feng and set off together with him. A month's time quickly passed. News came from the damning Pure Land that they had chosen Chu Feng as Qin Luoyin's Dao companion. It was officially announced to the public and shook the entire cosmos. Moreover, they contacted Chu Feng in private and wanted him to rush to the Pure Land as soon as possible without delay. "All right, I'll go and get married right away," Chu Feng responded. The silver-haired little Lolita immediately became unhappy. She had been observing for a month and was sure that Chu Feng was that person. She couldn't help but shout, "Brother-in-law, you're going to damning Pure Land. What about my sister?" At this moment, Ing Wudi's ears were very good. He heard it and almost bit his tongue. He dug his ears and confirmed that he didn't hear wrongly. He asked Ing Xiaoxiao, "What did you call him?" "I called him brother-in-law." "Wait a moment, my mind is a little messed up. Say it again slowly." Chapter 869. I said, "I'm calling him brother-in-law." The silver-haired little Lolita emphasized in a loud voice. She wasn't afraid of provoking her brother at all. In reality, she felt that she had been provoked. The news that Chu Feng was going to damning Pure Land to marry Qin Luoyin was too terrible. After that, she saw her brother's stupefied expression. He still hadn't come back to his senses as he tilted his head and stared blankly at Chu Feng. He was puzzled no matter how he racked his brains. Soon after, Ing Wudi came back to his senses and reprimanded his sister instead. He thought she was out of her mind and said, "How improper! What nonsense are you spouting?" At the same time, he had a suspicious expression on his face. He was worried that something had happened to his sister and that she was mentally abnormal. He stared at her with a concerned expression. Ing Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes. She really didn't want to pay attention to him anymore. She looked at Chu Feng and said, "You're also Wu Luanhui?" Her foreign memories weren't restored by Chu Feng. Instead, she relied on her intuition and her recent observations to come to this conclusion. "Don't talk nonsense." Ing Wudi berated him. Of course, he didn't forget to stare at Chu Feng because his heart was in a complete mess. "Brother, wake up. Don't always live in your own world," Ing Xiaoxiao retorted. Chu Feng was astonished as he looked at the silver-haired little Lolita. She was truly extraordinary. Did she have vague memories in the depths of her heart? However, Ing Wudi's vision immediately turned black when he saw Chu Feng's state. He said with a trembling voice, "Brother Chu, are you all right?" Ing Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes and looked at her brother. "You're still asking others if they're all right? I think you should be asking yourself. Look at your appearance." "Brother Chu, don't listen to the child's nonsense." Ing Wuti said as he looked at Chu Feng. Ing Xiaoxiao felt that her brother was incurable because he still wasn't willing to accept reality. Chu Feng hesitated for a moment before deciding to admit it. He had to face reality sooner or later, so he shouldn't fool this brother-in-law who had a good impression of him recently. Yes, I'm also Wu Luanhui. Ouch! Ing Wuti clutched his chest and staggered backward. He cried out in pain as his vision turned black and he almost fell headfirst onto the ground. For him, it was too exciting. Brother, are you all right? Ing Xiaoxiao hurriedly supported him. Pooh! Her brother immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was deathly pale as he stared at Chu Feng. Should we get rid of it? Ouyang Black Swan whispered to Chu Feng. Go away. Chu Feng pushed him aside. Is this true? Ing Wuti's voice was hoarse and his eyes were a little vacant. He really couldn't accept this. The brother Chu he held in exceptionally high esteem was actually Wu Luanhui? He almost shouted out loud. This was simply a great torture. In the end, he was back to square one. He still had to call this person brother-in-law? Think about it, if you weren't my brother-in-law, would I stand up for you and help you? Chu Feng didn't hide anything now. Pft! Ing Wuti started to vomit blood again. His body was on the verge of collapse, and he couldn't quite stand up. Wu Luanhui, I'll fight it out with you. Ing Wuti's eyes reddened, and he was about to pounce over. You're wrong, I'm not Wu Luanhui, said Chu Feng. Huh! Ing Wuti suddenly stopped in his tracks. Chu Feng is the real one. Wu Luanhui is just an alias, said Chu Feng. Ing Wuti said angrily, Isn't it all the same? I'll fight it out with you. You deceived my feelings, and in the end, it's still you, little thief. I absolutely won't allow you to marry my sister. In the distance, Yuan Shiqing and Yuan saw that something was wrong and hurried over to support Ing Wuti. They looked very concerned. Brother Ing, are you all right? Why is your face so pale without any color? Brother Chu, what's wrong with him? Chu Feng had a strange expression on his face as he said. He's a little excited when he heard news about Wu Luanhui. He's Wu Luanhui. I'm so angry! Ing Wuti shouted. At this moment, Yuan Shiqing and Yuan widened their eyes as if they had seen a living ghost. Soon after, Ing Wuti went berserk. His eyes were red, and his face quickly turned from deathly white to black. He pounced over to fight Chu Feng with his life on the line. He was really vomiting blood because he couldn't bear this kind of cruel truth. I say, Wuti's younger brother-in-law, what do you mean by that? Chu Feng counterattacked and sent Ing Wuti flying with a few slaps. He coughed up large mouthfuls of blood at the side. Brother-in-law, don't hurt my brother, shouted the silver-haired little Lolita. It's fine. I'll help him slap out some of the extravasated blood in his body. It's good for his body, replied Chu Feng. Very soon, this younger brother-in-law was spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. Ing Wuti was extremely angry. From his point of view, this younger sister of his was truly hopeless. She had completely defected to the enemy camp. At the same time, he also wanted to curse. To hell with extravasated blood in his body. This was clearly a strike of revenge. The great devil, Chu Feng, was teaching him a proper lesson. Yuan Shiqing and Yuan had strange expressions on their faces. They felt that this was rather explosive. This was definitely explosive news. Wu Luanhui was Chu Feng, and the great devil was Wu Luanhui. As for Ziluan, Yuan Mo, and Zhao Qing, they had long been dumbfounded. Wu Luanhui and Chu Feng were the same person? What a mess! The supremely righteous Luanhui king, the sincere and pure demon King Chu. They're the same person. Oh my brother, pinch me. Are you dreaming? Yuan had a smile on her face. After she finished speaking to her brother, she stared at the great devil, Chu Feng, endlessly. But very soon, she couldn't smile anymore as she heard Ouyang Feng's malicious words. She suggested Chu Feng to silence them. These two have to be kidnapped to prevent the news from leaking. If it doesn't work, then just chop them up. Don't, we promise we won't say anything. Yuan's expression was stiff as she tried her best to smile. She didn't want to die too unjustly. As the 10th most beautiful woman under the starry sky, her every frown and smile carried charm. She had bright eyes and white teeth, and she was rather breathtaking and moving. Chu Feng waved his hand and said, "Forget it. They're all acquaintances. How can we just chop them up just like that? Even if we have to make a move, we'll just sell them. Fighting and killing are too cruel." Motherf *Ker. Yuan was speechless. You still want to make a move on acquaintances? Yuan Shiqing also had a strange expression on his face as he stared at Chu Feng nonstop. This was too unexpected and extremely shocking. At the same time, he sympathized with Ing Wudi incomparably. This time, he would definitely suffer double the blow and suffer double the torment. The most crucial thing was that Chu Feng had become the son-in-law of Damning Pure Land. Did this orthodoxy know he was Wu Luanhui? At the same time, Wu Luanhui was the son-in-law of the quasi-immortal race. The race definitely didn't know he was Chu Feng, right? Even though the siblings, Yuan Shiqing and Yuan, had their freedom restricted and were following by Chu Feng's side, their hearts were restless. The news they had obtained was too shocking. If it were to really spread to the universe, it would definitely cause a huge earthquake. They were a little excited. A person had become the son-in-law of Damning Pure Land and the quasi-immortal race at the same time. This was definitely going to be a huge matter. When the truth was revealed, they reckoned that all parties would be dumbfounded and some people would be flustered and exasperated. "Brother Chu, where are you taking us?" asked Yuan Shiqing. As for Ing Wudi, he already couldn't open his mouth to speak. He was suppressed by Chu Feng and couldn't move or speak. He could only stare at Chu Feng with eyes that were spitting fire. Chu Feng said, "We're going to Damning Pure Land to get married. You siblings will be the groomsmen and bridesmaid." "I've never heard of biological siblings being groomsmen and bridesmaids." Yuan was fuming. "Objection ineffective. Let's go together." Ing Xiaoxiao cried out, "Brother-in-law, you're too bad. How can you face my sister like this? You're even letting my brother down and letting down his beautiful expectations." It would have been better if he hadn't heard these words, but Ing Wudi wanted to bang his head against the wall after hearing these words. He felt that this was the darkest day of his life. His heart was dripping blood and he started to doubt his life. Tears almost fell from his eyes when he knew the truth. "Wudi, we've gone through trials and tribulations together. We have a friendship of life and death. I'll help you recover your foreign memories after you've calmed down." Chu Feng immediately tapped the space between Ing Xiaoxiao's brows with a finger and helped her recover her memories first. As for his brother-in-law, he would temper him first. Brother-in-law. As expected, Ing Xiaoxiao's eyes were filled with tears after she saw through the truth. She became increasingly intimate with him. Meanwhile, Ing Wudi's expression was unsightly and as black as the bottom of a pot. He really wanted to fight the great demon Chu Feng to the death. Chu Feng went on his way. After he opened the super wormhole, it could be said to be teleportation. He soon returned to Damning Pure Land and arrived in front of their mountain gate. Coming to Damning Pure Land again this time, Chu Feng's state of mind was completely different. He was rather rueful as a smile appeared on his face. He was in a great mood. As for the Damning Pure Land disciples, some of them turned their heads the instant they saw Chu Feng. From the bottom of their hearts, they didn't want to see him the most. Why didn't any accidents occur? Why didn't anyone intercept and kill him midway? Someone muttered inwardly. He really wished that someone would intercept Chu Feng midway. Forget it. He's a super VIP of the Wormhole Express Company. He can open a wormhole at any time and arrive here with a thought. Who can catch up to him? Some people lamented. They didn't have a single solution. They could only look on helplessly as this demon walked into damning Pure Land again. Furthermore, they wanted to personally witness their junior sister, goddess Qin Luoyin, using her body to feed the demon. Seeing that Chu Feng had arrived so quickly, the old monsters of damning Pure Land heaved a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that some unforeseen event would occur. If Chu Feng didn't come, then they wouldn't be able to get out of this embarrassing situation. But when they saw that Ing Wudi had also come along, their expressions were a little unsightly. After all, Wu Luanhui had been abducted by the quasi-immortal race previously. Now, the people of the quasi-immortal race had come again. What was the meaning of this? Ing Wudi's mouth was sealed. If he could open his mouth, he really wanted to say, "To hell with Chu Feng and Wu Luanhui. The quasi-immortal race doesn't care about them. You guys can take them away. There's no need to be hostile." Naturally, some of the old monsters of damning Pure Land revealed strange expressions. They had always suspected that Chu Feng and Wu Luanhui had a great connection. Now, they were carefully observing him. Chu Feng was very humble and polite. He wasn't as overbearing as he was a month ago. At that time, he had completely come knocking on their door. Now, he was very dutiful. He inquired about wedding matters and listened to the various suggestions of these old monsters. Damning Pure Land's inheritance has been passed down for millions of years. The selection of Tao companions by the saintesses of every generation is a grand event. Naturally, it can't be simple and casual. We'll be inviting fellow Taoists from all over the universe to attend the wedding. There was no need to think too much. This was going to be a grand wedding. Chu Feng couldn't even keep a low profile because damning Pure Land was too particular about it. "Are we going to send out the invitations now?" asked Chu Feng. "They've already been sent out. People from the top 10 planets must attend, and the top 100 planets won't be absent, either." When the invitations were mentioned, some of the old monsters of damning Pure Land felt very upset in their hearts. They were even a little stifled. A year ago, they refused Chu Feng and didn't send him golden invitations, but a year later, they had to personally help him send out the wedding invitations. This was simply unbearable for them. It was fine if they selectively ignored it, but once they took it seriously and thought about it in detail, the old monsters of damning Pure Land felt their faces burning and their hearts bleeding. This was really. The more they thought about it in detail, the more uncomfortable they felt. Demon Chu Feng, who had always been at loggerheads with them, actually wanted to marry their saintess Qin Luoyin in the end. This made them look up at the sky and sigh deeply. Some old monsters were swayed by personal gains and losses. Choosing such a heaven-warping genius as Qin Luoyin's Tao companion would protect damning Pure Land for many years to come. The benefits were enormous. But how would the great evolutionary sects of every land view this matter? In reality, every part of the universe was in an uproar right now. Damning Pure Land has finally bowed to evil forces. That human trafficker, that demon, has become damning Pure Land's son-in-law. Of course, there were also those who stood on Chu Feng's side. They sighed and said, "Chu Feng's counterattack. Damning Pure Land ignored him a year ago, but now they've chosen him as their son-in-law." Life. This was especially true when they mentioned that damning Pure Land didn't give Chu Feng golden invitations back then, but now they were helping him send wedding invitations all over the universe. Many people had strange expressions on their faces and revealed smiles. In the next few days, the number of evolvers on damning Pure Land's planet skyrocketed. It became incomparably lively all of a sudden. Many evolvers flocked over from every part of the universe's starry skies. Some received invitations, while others rushed over on their own. For a moment, damning Pure Land's mountain gate was about to be trampled apart. Guests came in an endless stream. There were experts from every race. It was almost enough to say that all races came to congratulate him. The main thing was that damning Pure Land's ranking was very high and their influence was enormous. Add to that Chu Feng's extraordinary strength and the vague power of the #1 expert of the younger generation, there were simply too many guests from every part of the universe. Honorable nephew, can you tell me whether you're Wu Luanhui or not? Finally, an old monster couldn't hold it in anymore and went to ask Chu Feng. Do I look like it? Chu Feng was very calm and didn't mind at all. That was because all kinds of invitations had been sent out. How could damning Pure Land fall out with him at this time? A little. That old woman nodded. Then I am. Chu Feng smiled. Clang! The old woman fell back and knocked over tables and chairs. Chapter 870. The old woman really couldn't take it anymore. She felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Seeing his smile didn't make people feel happy. Instead, they felt irritated and angry. Whether it was the old woman in the room or the old monster eavesdropping outside, they all covered their chests and felt like they were about to have a heart attack. Their hearts were blocked and the pain was unbearable. You! The old woman in the room pointed at Chu Feng. She really wanted to spit on his head. This brat was too shameless. He was a two-faced swindler. Did he want to be the son-in-law of two different families? He was still so calm after the incident. Comparatively, the old woman really couldn't stay calm. She knocked over the tea table, tables and chairs. She was covered in tea and cut a sorry figure. She felt her heart aching. This time, the damning Pure Land had been tricked to death by this demon. Was he really the same person as Wu Luanhui? Don't stop me. I'm going to exterminate the demon. Outside the room, an old monster's face was red and the veins on his forehead were bulging. He was extremely agitated. Old Wang, calm down. Now that the invitations have been sent out, the whole world and the entire universe knows that the damning Pure Land's holy lady is getting married. What's the meaning of making a ruckus like this? If news of this were to leak out, our damning Pure Land would become the laughing stock of the universe. A few old monsters held down an old man and didn't let him act recklessly. They were really afraid of stirring up a huge storm. Then, a few old men broke through the door and rushed into the palace. When they saw Chu Feng, they were panting heavily and their necks were red. It was indeed rare for them to act like this. Demon, swindler, human trafficker, swindler, you're too evil. You want to harm our damning Pure Land, roared an old man. That was because they were worried that they might go against the quasi-immortal race, and both sides would fight over a son-in-law. In the end, it would really be too excessive if both women were to marry the same person. This was unprecedented. For a top-ranked orthodoxy like theirs, there had never been a record of a saintess marrying someone else. Chu Feng said calmly, I was forced by you guys. I rather yearned for the damning Pure Land's divine palace, but you guys ignored me. After refusing to give me the golden invitation, you even mocked and ridiculed me. I was just acting on impulse and was forced to find another way to enter the Pure Land. I'm ashamed that I was young and frivolous. I'm sorry. These words made the group of old monsters unable to scold or beat him for a moment. They were extremely embarrassed and annoyed. Thinking back to what had happened in the past, they were ashamed and irritated. They repeatedly ridiculed Chu Feng and treated him with contempt, threatening to block his path of advancement. In the end, they suffered a double loss, and it truly caused them to fly into a rage out of humiliation, and they truly wished for nothing more than to chop Chu Feng up. However, now that it was a fait accompli, did he have to clarify to the entire universe that the Tao companion he had chosen was not Chu Feng? This wasn't realistic. Right now there was an endless stream of guests, and all of them were distinguished guests. If such a thing really happened, damning Pure Land would lose all face and would become the laughingstock of the universe. Now these old monsters discovered that they had created this kind of bitter fruit, and it seemed like they had to swallow it even if they had tears in their eyes. However, seeing how calm Chu Feng was, they couldn't help but feel angry. This demon, tyrant, human trafficker, and swindler was truly a good-for-nothing. Seniors, I'm not lying. I'm Chu Feng, and the one you've chosen is also Chu Feng, Chu Feng said, reminding them that this was his true identity. Keep it a secret, this matter can't be leaked. An old woman warned repeatedly because they were afraid that the quasi-immortal race would cause a scene at the wedding. In any case, they would deal with headaches in the future, so they didn't care about it for now. That's why, seniors, I'll leaving Wudi Yuan and Yuan Shirching to you. They know the truth, so think of a way to make them know their place. These old monsters immediately felt their teeth ache when they heard this. From now on, they would have to clean up his mess. I want to see Luoyin. Chu Feng smiled. Now, the group of people was scared when they saw this kind of smile of his. Other people's smiles were very brilliant, but when he smiled, it was guaranteed that something would happen. No, we have to avoid arousing suspicion before marriage. After that, the group of people left hurriedly and even cut a bit of a sorry figure. That was because they were still a bit worried that the matter of Qin Luoyin's pregnancy would be exposed. Forget it, this demon cheated us once, so now it can be considered fair. We'll hide Luoyin's matter from him, so we don't have to feel guilty now. Yes, that makes sense. No matter how you torment Demon Chu, he'll still be kept in the dark in the end. An eye for an eye. When these old monsters thought of this, their minds became much more balanced. Even their bodies and bones became light and nimble, and their footsteps were light. Wait a moment, I remember now. Tyrant Godhead, isn't Jun Tuo's son also strange? He used to have a close relationship with Wu Luanhui, but now he's with Chu Feng. Go ask him. After that, these people relapsed and asked Chu Feng if the so-called Tyrant Godhead, Yi, was his real body. There shouldn't be any mistake, right? I forgot to tell you guys. He's the same as me and accidentally came in under an alias. Yes, but I feel that he might really be related to Jun Tuo by blood, Chu Feng said unkindly. Those from damning Pure Land didn't hear the second half of the sentence and remembered the first half. They were so angry that their hearts were dripping with blood. In the end, they were stabbed in the heart once more. Goddamn it, apart from Chu Feng, there was also a divine beast mixed in. Their damning Pure Land's defensive measures were too poor and like a sieve. How infuriating! After that, they turned around and left, feeling very hurt. There were more and more guests in the following 2 days. Fortunately, damning Pure Land was big enough to accommodate tens of thousands of guests from evolved races. If it was a small sect, they wouldn't be able to make arrangements at all. During this period, Chu Feng wasn't idle at all. He brought Ouyang Feng, Ziluan, and Yuan Mo and Zhao Qing everywhere. In reality, he was helping Damning Pure Land set up a domain. Of course, Damning Pure Land didn't take it seriously. They didn't believe that his attainments in domains could touch the Saint Realm. In reality, Chu Feng wanted to sense a major event. He was worried that an accident would happen during the wedding. He didn't believe that all the saints in the universe had left and that there would definitely be people left behind. Not to mention other places, there were 2 in Damning Pure Land alone. He also sensed an old saint when he went to the fragrant elephant race last time. There are many spiritual mountains in Damning Pure Land with rising purple clouds. The scenery is really beautiful. Ziluan looked very happy. Her large eyes were shining and her footsteps were light. She was practically on a scenic tour. After being berated by Chu Feng, she immediately helped set up a domain obediently and went to bury some important divine magnets. Chu Feng made all kinds of preparations. At the very least, he had to control all the existing large-scale domains and then supplement and set up his own method. Yes, it's best if no one comes to cause trouble. If they come to disgust people at such a juncture, they'll definitely fight to the death. I don't mind slaughtering a saint. Listening to his murderous words, even Ouyang Feng was shocked. This brother of his was going to do something big, and it was bound to be hair-raising. Oh my, he's going to trick people again. Fight, kill, kill. Luan mumbled softly. Go dig a hole and bury the divine magnets. Chu Feng glared. Humph. She immediately twisted her small waist, raised her little chin, and flung the back of her head at him before leaving gracefully. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. Almost all the guests had arrived, and some of the most respected people arrived as the finale. Chu Feng also began to come to welcome the guests. A grand wedding was about to begin. The group of old monsters from Damning Pure Land was even more nervous than Chu Feng. They were afraid that an accident would happen and they would make a fool of themselves. During these few days, they had been helping Chu Feng clean up his mess. They spread the word about the honest and kind divine King Chu without restraint. They did their best to wash away all the black stains on him. The corpse race's elder, Yan Qing, has arrived with his disciple. This was an old acquaintance. It was this elder who came to the divine temple last time to pick up their race's Qilin child, Yan Luo. Now that he came again, his expression wasn't very good. After all, Yan Luo still hadn't made a move until now. He was no different from a dead person. However, since they received the invitation and Damning Pure Land's ranking was truly inferior, they could rank 11th when they were strong, second only to the top 10. Therefore, the corpse race couldn't be too rude on such a joyous occasion. Greetings, senior. Chu Feng greeted him with a smile. Yes, young man, you're not bad. You're much stronger than that little bastard, Wu Luanhui. Yan Qing nodded with a dead face and a fake smile. Wu Luanhui isn't bad either. He's supremely righteous and has an awe-inspiring righteousness. I've always admired his cultivation and character. It can be said that we didn't get to know each other through a fight. Chu Feng praised him without blushing or skipping a beat. Beside him, Ying Xiao Xiao, Yuan Yuan, Luan, and the others all rolled their eyes. Even Ouyang Feng really wanted to say, "You're too shameless. How can you praise yourself like this?" As for Ying Wudi, he didn't even want to open his eyes to look at him. Yuan Shiqing was speechless and kept a low profile. Who does Wu Luanhui think he is? Yan Qing was very indignant. Old fellow, how can you say that? The quasi-immortal race's elders came. Moreover, there were no less than 5 elders accompanying them. They gave Damning Pure Land a lot of face. They were rather dissatisfied after hearing Yan Qing's words and stared at him in unison. The quasi-immortal race was too powerful. Apart from being slightly afraid of the Tao race and the Buddhist race, they weren't afraid of anyone and could crush them. After all, the universe's top 3 ranking wasn't just for show. Yan Qing really wanted to say something, but he immediately lowered his head when he saw the 5 of them standing together. He would definitely suffer a great loss if he really challenged them. He would definitely be beaten if he ridiculed the other party's son-in-law. Little brother Chu Feng, you're pretty good. An elder from the quasi-immortal race had a very strong smile on his face as he patted Chu Feng's shoulder. Chu Feng smiled and said, Senior's judgment of people isn't bad. Wu Luanhui is a dragon among men and an exceptional genius that's hard to come by in 100 generations. I have an extremely good impression of him. Even though we've exchanged blows before, we appreciate each other's talent. I think we'll definitely become the best of friends. Beside him, even a thick-skinned person like Ouyang Feng couldn't help but have goosebumps, let alone Ying Xiao Xiao, Yuan Yuan, Ying Wudi, and the others who were restrained. Even someone as thick-skinned as Ouyang Feng couldn't help but have goosebumps, let alone Ying Xiao Xiao, Yuan Yuan, Ying Wudi, and the others who were restrained. Even Luan, who was very afraid of Chu Feng, rolled her eyes and really wanted to say this. Haha, my worthy nephew, you're really not bad. I believe that you and Wu Luanhui will become bosom friends. The future belongs to the two of you. The supremely righteous King Luanhui, the sincere and pure divine King Chu. As for him saying that Chu Feng was sincere and pure, that was completely going against his conscience. He was merely giving face to damning Pure Land and the great demon Chu Feng on this occasion. They were just mutually praising each other. But many of the guests in the surroundings were speechless. Motherf *Ker, did the great demon Chu Feng really want to be whitewashed? Even the top 10 powerful races in the universe were helping to praise him. Buddhist race's esteemed guest, Master Kuning, has arrived. Someone shouted loudly and everyone was moved. 500 years ago, this Kuning was a heaven-warping genius. He fought all over the universe and rarely had an opponent in his generation. He was one of the best. Unfortunately, he had been bitterly cultivating in seclusion and was unable to break through to the quasi-saint realm all along. Furthermore, he was determined by the ancient ancestor-level figures that due to certain reasons, he might not have the chance to enter the saint realm in this lifetime. It was a great pity. But in the golden body domain, he was a peerless character. The Buddhist race also gave him a lot of faith. 3 elders came with great gifts and many disciples came along. Among them was their race's son of Buddha, Shihong. His mental state was actually pretty good. This made many people suck in a breath of cold air. The Buddhist race's foundation was too deep. A month ago, Shihong still looked like an idiot, but now he had actually recovered. There was no need to think too much about it. The Buddhist race had great soul medicine that helped Shihong recover his damaged soul light and allowed him to rise again. Greetings, seniors of the Buddhist race. Chu Feng went forward to greet them politely under the lead of a few elders from damning Pure Land. Master Kuning nodded and said, "Not bad. He's truly a hero of the human race. His divine splendor is restrained, his muscles and bones are like dragons, and his blood and chi are like the sea. Once he erupts, he can strike the 9 heavens above and shake the netherworld below. His future accomplishments are limitless." This evaluation was very high and gave enough face to damning Pure Land and Chu Feng. Chu Feng was modest and courteous as he said, "Senior, you flatter me. This should be son of Buddha Shihong, right? At a glance, he's like the reincarnation of a true Buddha. His divine aura pours forth, his style is outstanding, and his soul light is pure. As expected of an outstanding talent from the Buddhist race. He's destined to become a great Buddha in the future." The 3 elders from the Buddhist race all had smiles on their faces as they nodded at Chu Feng. Shihong looked at Chu Feng and revealed a strange expression as he said, "Buddhism talks about fate. I don't know why, but Brother Chu Feng and I feel like old friends at first sight. I feel especially familiar with him." Ouyang Feng curled his lips at the side. He really wanted to say, "Of course you feel familiar with him. You've been ruthlessly sorted out by him before, so your subconscious is too deep." Chu Feng nodded and said, "Me too. That's why Brother Shihong and I will definitely become bosom friends. I really regret not having met earlier today." He rambled on, which put everyone from the Buddhist race in a good mood. Their favorable impression of Chu Feng increased by a large margin. In reality, the Buddhist race and Earth originally had no enmity. Many people in the surroundings were very disappointed. They wanted to see if the Buddhist race and great demon Chu Feng would be unhappy. Who would have thought that the 2 parties would talk so harmoniously? The rumors are indeed incorrect. I see that little friend Chu Feng is full of spirituality and has a Buddhist charm. How can he have the temperament of a demon? The world likes me and hates me. Let him judge. Little friend's state of mind is astonishing. As expected, you're extraordinary. An elder from the Buddhist race sighed. I also feel that I have a Buddhist nature. I once suspected that I might be the reincarnation of a powerhouse from the Buddhist race, replied Chu Feng calmly. You're really shameless. Ingwudi really wanted to curse. In reality, the group of people in the surroundings was speechless when they saw that the great demon Chu Feng was on such good terms with the Buddhist race. Kuning nodded and said, "Haha, good. Little friend can get closer to Shihong in the future and discuss the Tao." The Origin Demon Race's esteemed guest has arrived. The Demon Race's esteemed guest has arrived. The Deity Race, the Tao Race, in just a moment, the 10 Greats had arrived. Even though the Deity Race had fallen from the 10 Greats, they still arrived as the finale. They were incomparably resentful, and held deep enmity toward Chu Feng. At the same time, they also hated the damning Pure Land. Excuse me. How can you guests who are ranked 250 or so occupy the 10 Great seats? Don't you see that the real 10 Greats have arrived? The Big Black Yak, Yellow Cattle, Old Donkey, and the others had arrived. This was Chu Feng's group of relatives and friends from Earth, including his parents. The damning Pure Land mustered a large force to welcome them and receive them very courteously. Feeling the Deity Race's enmity, the Big Black Yak naturally wasn't polite. He directly pushed their disciples to the side and occupied their special seats in the 10 Greats. Do you see that? I've brought the demon ancestors' cauldron. If you dare to cause trouble at this wedding, I'll smash the deity planet later and loot it clean. The Big Black Yak threatened. He was wearing a black suit and large sunglasses. He had a cigar as thick as a carrot in his mouth. His appearance hadn't changed for 10,000 years. In reality, when the numerous guests noticed this side, they were a little dizzy. With the Big Black Yak at the head, Zhou Quan, Old Donkey, Manchurian Tiger, Mastiff King, and the others behind him all had the same appearance. They were all dressed like black bosses. Even Chu Feng felt slightly ashamed. This group of brothers really had full personalities. Fortunately, they didn't dress like this for his parents. Chapter 871. Scarlet multicolored light curled up, purple clouds rippled, and green splendor sprinkled down. In the damning Pure Land, different beautiful mountain peaks were suffused with different spiritual energy and luster. Clouds were steaming, and the scenery was extremely beautiful. Especially today, there was a tide of guests on the occasion of the Saintess's wedding. The Pure Land attached great importance to the arrival of all the esteemed guests and opened up many important places that were normally off-limit. Everyone was amazed. Some areas had elegant sceneries, while others were extremely magnificent. For instance, the floating island in the sky had a picturesque scenery with green pines and emerald cypresses. White mist was faintly discernible, just like a fairyland. Additionally, there was a 1,000-meter-long golden waterfall pouring down from the towering peaks. The sound was deafening like thunder, and it was interwoven with orderly runes. This was the famous Great Golden Thunderous Waterfall, which made the Buddhist race gasp in admiration. They lingered here and weren't willing to leave. That was because this mysterious treasure land faintly resonated with their thunderous breathing technique, allowing them to comprehend something. Normally, this place wasn't open to the outside world. It was the seclusion area of the Pure Land's old monsters. The wedding was held in an extremely spacious area. Because there were too many guests, they chose a beautiful and majestic area in the damning Pure Land that could accommodate all the evolvers. Fellow Taoists, welcome to the damning Pure Land. Today isn't only the wedding day of our Saintess, but also a small gathering with fellow Taoists. An old man from the damning Pure Land spoke up. He stood on a high platform with white hair and a youthful complexion. He had the demeanor of an immortal, and after a simple and direct speech, he raised his wine cup and toasted everyone. Haha, congratulations to the damning Pure Land for obtaining an excellent son-in-law. Someone immediately congratulated him. Chu Feng, Divine King Chu. His divine arts are outstanding, and it's hard to find one or two people of the same generation who can compete with him. He has the power to sweep through an entire generation. How extraordinary! Qin Luoyin is an outstanding beauty that can shock the starry skies. Meanwhile, Chu Feng's talents are superb and can rival everyone under the quasi-saint realm. He might be able to suppress the heavens in the future. The two can be said to be a perfect match, a match made in heaven. A large group of people congratulated and offered their blessings. Even the corpse race didn't add to the chaos on this occasion. Their elder, Yenqing, also said some blessings without any pain and offered valuable gifts. The atmosphere here was peaceful. Chu Feng had arrived. He was dressed in the unique clothing of the Big Dream Planet. He was very spirited and had an imposing appearance. It could be said that he was in the prime of his life. Qin Luoyin arrived gracefully. Her figure was extremely tall and slender as she stood there. Her waist was slender and her legs were long and straight. She was a bit taller than most men. Her entire being was graceful and elegant. Her face was lustrous and white and could be considered a peerless beauty. There was not a single flaw to be found on her face. Her big eyes were intelligent and her lips were bright red. She was natural and unrestrained with the demeanor of a goddess. She allowed the people from the Black Blood platform and the Origin Beast platform to film her while maintaining a charming smile. Today, Damring Pure Land specially allowed some platforms in the universe to enter. As long as they followed the rules, they could follow and film the entire process. In addition, the groomsmen, Ing Wudi and Yuan Shiqing, were famous people. They were also very handsome and attractive. As for the group of bridesmaids, they were also quite gorgeous. For example, Yuan, the silver-haired little loli, Ziluan, and the vermilion bird fairy. They were stunning and dazzling. At this moment, the universe was in an uproar. It was unknown how many people were watching the live broadcast because this wedding was too grand and had long since been publicized. For a moment, many young people sighed, cursed, and discussed passionately. There were all kinds of opinions. Qin Luoyin was too popular and had countless fans. Now that they saw her getting married and becoming someone else's bride, many young people were naturally unwilling and felt depressed. Sigh. She's originally a goddess of a generation, but she's going to marry a demon. This world is really incurable. So, you can't be a good person. If you want to stand out, you'd better become a demon. What are you saying? You're just jealous. Chu Feng's so-called reputation as a demon came from defeating the saint children of various races. When all is said and done, he's never done anything evil. Now it's divine King Chu. In the starry skies, there were also Chu Feng's supporters who felt that it was unfair for him. They felt that those people shouldn't ruin his reputation. Sigh, the goddess I like is getting married. From now on, I've decided to accompany the ancient Buddha for 3 days. After that, I'll travel the world and experience the surging mortal world. I'll completely let go. Get lost, you flower Tao demon. What mortal world? You should be drowned in a pig cage. In any case, Chu Feng marrying Qin Luoyin had become a hot topic. Countless people were discussing and watching the live broadcast. There were all kinds of voices. Some were praising, some were sad, some were cursing, and some were indignant. At this moment, the wedding was in progress in Damning Pure Land. First bow to heaven and earth. This was a great ceremony. Even if Chu Feng scolded the heavens for no reason, he had no choice but to bow now. The group of great demons of Kunlun was also very serious. They were observing the ceremony and watching the newlyweds. They were all very solemn and vigilant in all directions, afraid that someone would cause trouble. Young lady she had also arrived. She rolled her eyes and looked at Chu Feng from afar with a seething expression. She was holding an exquisite umbrella which seemed to be blocking the sun, but in fact, the great demons of Kunlun who knew the inside story knew that this was the heavenly umbrella. It could kill a saint and was also helping to keep watch. Old Donkey bared his buck teeth and went forward. Fairy actually, Chu Feng has no other choice. He's passive. Think about it, he has a child. After all, he's his descendant. How could he watch as he was born without a father? Even though he's a passive child, as a responsible man, he must take responsibility. What do you mean? Why are you telling me this? Lady Shi's expression was unkind as she stared at Old Donkey. I'm just afraid that you'll take things too hard and… Ouch, why are you pointing the heavenly umbrella at me? Shi, don't be like this. You'll kill me. Change the way you address me. I'm getting goosebumps all over my body. Lady Shi was already in a bad mood. She couldn't take it anymore after hearing him call her Shi. It was as if several caterpillars were crawling on her body as she chased after him to kill him. Old Donkey turned around and ran, pulling the black yak over to take his place. Second, bow to your parents. Chu Feng's parents were sitting there with kind and happy smiles on their faces. In reality, the two of them were a bit dizzy. They were originally on Earth, but in the end, they had come to the other side of the starry sky to see their son marry an extraterrestrial wife. But in general, they were quite satisfied. They had long been looking forward to Chu Feng getting married, and had been urging him to do so for a long time. Who would have thought that it would come true today? This extraterrestrial wife isn't bad. The two looked at each other happily. Husband and wife bowed to each other. The final juncture arrived. When Chu Feng and Qin Luoyin bowed to each other, all the guests were watching the ceremony. The silver-haired Lolita pouted on the spot while Lady Shi weighed the heavenly umbrella in her hand. Old Donkey's heart jumped as he watched. As for Ing Wudi, his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Look, have you guys noticed? Ing Wudi's face is as black as a sheet. I'm guessing that he's definitely secretly in love with Goddess Qin Luoyin. In the end, he found out that she's married and had no choice but to run over to be his groomsman. His heart is filled with sorrow and his face is pitch black. This wasn't a discussion on the spot but the discussion of all the people watching the live broadcast in the starry sky. In the end, it triggered a heated discussion. Brother, look at the trending rankings on some platforms. You're directly on the list. Everyone says that you're secretly in love with Goddess Qin Luoyin and that your heart is filled with sorrow. Ing Xiaoxiao reminded her brother. At this moment Ing Wudi was furious. He could even shoulder this black pot? He admitted that he had some thoughts in the past, but that was limited to the past. He had long since given up. His face was black because he was purely unhappy with Chu Feng. Could it be that this fellow was going to run over to the quasi-immortal race to marry his sister after marrying Qin Luoyin here? When he thought of all this, his heart was scratched by 100 claws. He really wanted nothing more than to suppress this great demon immediately. However, he just so happened to be suppressed now and couldn't move easily. He stood here as a groomsman like a wooden man, and the result was even more like what people were talking about. They said that his heart was filled with sorrow and his heart was like dead ashes. Look, the smile of the Origin Demon race's crown prince, Yuan Shiqing, is also a little stiff. He clearly also likes Goddess Qin Luoyin. He's also the groomsman. How lamentable and lamentable. This kind of heaven's proud son of heaven can't get what he wants either. His beloved was snatched away by the great demon Chu Feng. Alas, it turns out that it's not that we're helpless, but that there are people in the same boat who sympathize with each other. After hearing these words, Yuan Shiqing felt as uncomfortable as if he had eaten a dead mouse. His expression stiffened. Motherf *Ker, he was also shot while lying down. It was fine if they were talking about Ing Wudi, but why did they drag him into this? Do you guys see that? The 10th most beautiful woman in the universe, Princess Yuan's expression isn't so good either. Haha, I understand now. She likes the great demon Chu Feng, but in the end she felt indignant when she saw that the person he was marrying wasn't her. So she ran over to be the bridesmaid. She wants to compete with the bride in terms of beauty so that Chu Feng will never forget her. Yuan was speechless and really wanted to curse. How did she also get shot and become Chu Feng's secret lover? The reason she was like this was because a restriction had been set up and it was inconvenient for her to move. That was why she was unhappy. However, the more she listened, the darker her face became. She was simply about to go crazy. The damning Pure Land was very cautious. They were afraid that these few people who knew the inside story would cause trouble, so they tightened their defenses and planted a restriction on them, making it difficult for them to move. Haha, who would have thought that the sexy and enchanting demoness princess Yuan Yuan would actually like the great demon Chu Feng? This is very normal. Yuan Yuan comes from the origin demon race. It's very normal for her to like the great demon. The discussions in the starry skies made Yuan Yuan want to beat someone up. Many black lines appeared on her forehead as she felt that it was too shameful. She had actually been dragged into the water and became the great demon Chu Feng's secret lover. He had given her a label, but it was difficult to refute now. The more she tried to explain, the worse it would be. See? Princess Yuan Yuan's expression is unsightly and even dark. She has such a deep secret love. The couple finished bowing to each other and the ceremony was completed. From now on, the newlyweds could be considered to have walked together. At this point, the wedding could be considered to be successful. After that, there were all kinds of toasts and this place became more and more lively and unrestrained. Chu Feng took a break and walked to the side of the black yak and yellow cattle. He asked in a low voice, "Where's Yao Yao? Where is she now?" F***CK. Ouyang Feng was shocked and said, "You're trying to seduce Yao Yao. You haven't even died yet and you're still thinking about other things on the day of your wedding?" Old Donkey and the black yak stared at him with speechless expressions. They looked at him with considerable admiration. He simply wanted to seduce her even when he was dead. Had this become an obsession in his heart? "What are you thinking about?" Chu Feng berated in a low voice. "Then why are you asking Yao Yao?" Yellow cattle rolled their eyes. "Didn't she not come? We haven't seen each other for a long time and I miss her very much. Naturally, I hope she can attend such an occasion. Could it be that she's angry because of this? Doesn't this mean—" Chu Feng's expression was rippling. "You still say you don't have evil intentions? TSK. A group of great demons hissed at him. Chu Feng let out a long sigh and said, "Snot and tears flow for a long time. Thinking of the long and drawn-out world, I'm crying in shame. How can I be so passive? You guys don't need to say any more. From now on, I'll only be creating. From today onwards, I'll focus on becoming a saint." Alas. "Stop, we don't believe your words." The Manchurian tiger patted his shoulder and said, "Don't be sad. Yao Yao went into seclusion and disappeared a long time ago. She doesn't know about your matter. Even we don't know where she went now." Chu Feng said, "Since that's the case, I'll take my leave first. I need to send the bride to the bridal chamber. I'll go and take a look." "There's no need for you to send her. There's a special person to escort her. You can't wait, can you? It'll be your turn in a while. Sigh, don't go, you guy who values love over friendship. Cece, long time no see. I really miss you." On the way, he saw she holding the heavenly umbrella and blocking his way. Chu Feng was scared and hurriedly tried to get close to her. "So mushy. I have goosebumps all over my body." "TSK, I don't care about you. Hurry up and leave." She opened her rosy little mouth with a slight fragrance of wine. She had a look of disdain on her face. Chu Feng immediately flashed and headed toward the bridal chamber in the back. Chapter 872. Chu Feng walked around she but couldn't leave. A group of people came forward and blocked his way. They were all young heroes and wanted to compete in drinking with him. Moreover, they made it clear that they weren't allowed to use their cultivation to resolve the problem. He was in a bit of a toothache. Judging from the attitude of these young people, they were treating him as an enemy. They were unhappy to see him marry the sixth beauty under the starry skies and wanted to get him drunk. Doubtlessly, these were the strongest geniuses of each race. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the right to appear in front of Chu Feng. ordinary people would have been stopped long ago. Among them, there was no lack of saint children and goddesses who had been sold by him. They shared a common enemy and wore smiles on their faces. The luminous cups in their hands were filled with 1,000-year-old wine and even 10,000-year-old royal wine. This wine had long since become jelly and contained special ingredient. It wasn't as simple as wine, it could even knock out a quasi-saint. Chu Feng's wish to go to the bridal chamber came to nothing. The group of young people teased him, asking why he was in such a hurry. Was he afraid that someone would steal his bride? At the same time, they emphasized that they would go to the bridal chamber together in a while. After hearing this, Chu Feng looked around and found that a group of old monsters were looking at him with smiles on their faces. If this group of old fellows wasn't present and if it wasn't under the watchful eyes of so many people, he would have definitely swung his lightning fist and knocked them all down. Haven't you heard that a moment of spring is worth 1,000 gold? Can you afford it? Then, he fell into a bitter battle. Many people carried large bowls and competed with him in drinking. The group of people supervised him and didn't allow him to use energy to refine them. Moo, are you bullying the 10 greats? Come here, Pegasus Saint Child. Have you forgotten about Old Yak? Have you forgotten about the auction on the Eastern Sea ship? I'm here. The Black Yak came forward to help. He tossed away his black sunglasses and held a bottle of 1,000-year-old wine in his hand. He wrapped his arms around the Pegasus Saint Child's neck and, at the same time, didn't let go of the others and asked for a drinking competition. You don't want to give Old Yak face? Do you want me to tell you the story of the 3 days and 2 nights I spent with you? The Black Yak glared at him. The Pegasus Saint Child and the others said anxiously, I say, Bull Demon, Old Black, don't talk nonsense. You can't sully yourself. What 3 days and 2 nights with you? We're all men. These people weren't unfamiliar with the Black Yak. During the auction back then, the Black Yak had acted as the auctioneer and was also responsible for explaining the auction. They understood each other very well. Who said I'm not interested in men? The Black Yak shook his large and coarse horns. It was as if he could pierce through the heaven and earth. He was quite rough. Oh my God, Big Uncle, Big Brother Ox, shut up and stop talking. We're convinced. We won't compete with Chu Feng in drinking anymore. I've never seen someone as careless as you. You don't want your reputation, but we do. The Heavenly Horse, Sacred Sun, and the others were scared out of their wit. On the other side, the Manchurian Tiger stopped a golden wolf and a 9 lives cat. He was drinking while expressing his goodwill to the saintess of the cat race, saying, Last time, I was in a hurry. I actually didn't notice such an outstanding beauty among my tiger race relatives. My apologies for not recognizing you. Now that I've seen you, it's as if I've seen a bright moon rising gradually. The whole Pure Land has been illuminated by the saintess. The Manchurian Tiger belched while trying to get close to the saintess of the cat race. Of course, he didn't forget to wrap his thick arm around the golden wolf Saint Child's neck, preventing him from competing with Chu Feng in drinking and causing trouble. The saintess of the 9 lives cat race smiled charmingly and responded appropriately. However, the golden wolf was full of resentment. He really wanted to say, You're trying to pick up a girl. Why are you hugging me? If not for his fear of Demon King Chu and the tyrant godhead eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey, he would have fought with the Manchurian Tiger. Hee-haw, everyone, I'm Lu Feiyang. I was born in one of the top 10 Earth's Jiangnan River town, a family of scholars. Normally, I like poetry and books, and I love literary talent the most. After that, he began to brag here. He used the cosmic language to translate the Tang and Song poems of Earth and recited Li Sa. He pretended to be refined and considered himself a famous scholar. Unfortunately, he was bearing a mouthful of large front teeth and had a pair of protruding ears. It really affected the city's appearance. But on the whole, it was still very effective. He could brag. While he was literary talent and romantic, He even boasted that he had entered a true dragon's lair and dug out a dragon's egg. When the famous mountains and great rivers of earth were recovering, all kinds of ancient divine bird eggs and young divine beasts began to appear once again. My proudest work in life was digging out a Kuanping egg on Mount Tai and hatching it into an Ouyang Feng, which became my battle pet. With this divine bird's descendant, I don't even need to lift a finger to look down on this generation of the universe. Old Donkey had drunk too much. After all, he had stopped 6 or 7 geniuses and dared to say anything. In the end, he was met with tragedy. That was because Ouyang Feng was standing behind him and his gaze could kill. In the end, he grabbed his pair of large ears and said, "I'm also a divine beast with the tyrant godhead. I can't stand the sight of you. Come, come, come. Let this king teach you how to be a distinguished and romantic true scholar." After a moment, Old Donkey's nose and face were bruised and swollen. He was more than half sober. A group of great demons from Kunlun had already rushed over to help Chu Feng break free from the crowd. However, the saintesses and goddesses who were somewhat reserved earlier made a move and started to make things difficult for him. Some were deliberately jeering, while others were grinding their teeth in hatred. Back then, this fellow didn't have the slightest protective feelings for the fairer sex. He directly suppressed those who should be suppressed and sold those who should be sold. He was too hateful. Among them, there were also those who had been escorted back to their homes not long ago. For example, the fragrant elephant saintess waved her foot-thick golden arm and lowered her millstone-sized head. She opened her bloody mouth wide and revealed 2 snow-white fangs that were over 3 meters long. She wanted to compete in drinking with him. "Are you going to use 3 days and 2 nights to threaten me? Say it, it doesn't matter. I'm not afraid. I like it." The fragrant elephant goddess smiled charmingly. It wasn't a problem for 2 people to be stuffed into her bloody mouth. Chu Feng felt dizzy. He really wanted to curse. Who the hell said that the saintesses of every race were exceptionally beautiful and elegant? He almost got a fright. Last time, the fragrant elephant race's saintess was in her original form. This time, she was in her human form. Who would have thought that she would be so majestic? He felt that he couldn't bear this kind of romantic encounter. Then, the other saintesses and goddesses all laughed. Some of them were ridiculously beautiful, some were indeed charming and moving, and there were even some who could be considered rare beauties. They were chattering with each other like orioles. They had all conspired to give Chu Feng a good show. They surrounded him together, hugging his arms, tearing at his clothes, touching his face. This was undisguised teasing. At the same time, they didn't forget to force him to drink. For example, the black snake saintess wrapped herself around his body and shouted that she wanted to drink wine with him. Saintess Sophie purposely sent him flirtatious glances with her bright red lips and fragrant breath, tempting him to drink more. Who's afraid of who? You guys are all saintesses with divine halos around your bodies, representing the purity of your race. Don't blame me for being impolite if you try to stop me like this, Chu Feng said without the slightest bit of fear. What was the big deal? Soon after, several bright red lipstick marks appeared on his face. He remembered that there were Sophie's, Mu Xian's, as well as a few otherworldly beauties. There was no lack of an exceptional beauty ranked in the top 10 in the starry skies. Relying on the fact that there were many people, this group of saintesses had drunk some wine and were also affected by the commotion. They were all teasing Chu Feng. As a result, some of them were a bit unbridled. But when Chu Feng saw the fragrant elephant saintess open her bloody mouth and kiss him, he immediately felt his blood run cold. He was really afraid of this saintess, so he decisively fought for her tenderness. This scared him so much that he fled in a panic. At the same time, he immediately understood that this group of saintesses was taking revenge on him. They were deliberately numbing him and preparing to give him a surprise. Divine King Chu, don't go. If you dare run away, we'll definitely chase you into the bridal chamber and make you sit with Goddess Qin Luoyin for the whole night. It's even worse than making a scene in the bridal chamber. A beauty at the back threatened and a group of people responded. After that, Chu Feng stopped in his tracks because he saw his brother-in-law not far away who was rejoicing in his misfortune. He immediately gnashed his teeth in hatred. At the same time, he decisively pulled Ing Wudi, who couldn't move easily, over and directly threw him to the saintesses of the fragrant elephant race and the dragon crocodile race. Moreover, he opened his mouth and added, "Brother Wudi is depressed tonight. I don't know why either. You guys accompany him well. Whoever marries into the quasi-immortal race in the future must give me, the matchmaker, a big red packet. Take action immediately. Don't blame me for not having a chance. I'll create one for you guys. I'll go." Yuan Shiqing was dumbstruck when he saw this scene in the distance. He observed a moment of silence for Ing Wudi. This brother-in-law of his was too evil. Not only was he using him as a shield, but he even matched it with such words. Wouldn't this make some saintesses go crazy? After all, the quasi-immortal race was one of the top 3 races in the cosmos. Ing Wudi was destined to control this race in the future and become one of the most powerful people in the cosmos. The most important thing was that there was a restriction in Ing Wudi's body at this moment, so it was inconvenient for him to move. As expected, the saintesses of the fragrant elephant race and the dragon crocodile race were very happy. They smiled sweetly at Chu Feng, but it wasn't the least bit alluring. Their bloody mouths almost swallowed Ing Wudi. Motherf ****. Ing Wudi's vision turned black and a chill ran down his spine. He cursed Chu Feng 100 times in his heart and cursed him continuously. However, he couldn't say anything now. When the other saintesses saw that Ing Wudi actually didn't resist, they immediately revealed extraordinary splendor. Naturally, they thought that he was more than 10 times more beautiful than the saintesses of the fragrant elephant race and the dragon crocodile race. A fragrant wind engulfed them as they swarmed over together. Of course, saintesses who dared to be so bold and unrestrained were certainly from very rough races. Normally, reserved saintesses wouldn't go to the extent of fighting over him like this, such as the Taotai race and the golden monkey race. It was obvious that these saintesses were powerful, but in terms of appearance alone, they didn't quite meet Ing Wudi's aesthetic standards. He was so angry that he wanted to eat Chu Feng alive. He believed that this was undisguised revenge. This great demon held a grudge and was tidying him up. In the distance, the quasi-immortal race's elder was slightly astonished after seeing this. He then nodded continuously and said, "Wudi has finally grown up." For the sake of the clan's interests, he actually took the initiative to choose the saintesses of powerful races to express his goodwill. He no longer cares about his external appearance. What a good child. These elders mainly drank a bit of the 10,000-year-old monarch wine after drinking the 1,000-year-old aged wine. This kind of wine could even knock out a quasi-saint, let alone him. He was a little drunk and hazy. Ing Wudi really wanted to hack someone when he heard this. He felt that life was as lonely as snow when he saw the group of orioles and swallows around him. It was so sad because he couldn't get excited at all. Besides, he cursed Chu Feng 500 times anew and really wanted to fight him with his life on the line. His younger sister, Ing Xiaoxiao, was pouting and crazily eating by herself. The silver-haired little Lolita was sulking and didn't have the slightest thought of saving him. This made Ing Wudi extremely angry. Meanwhile, the main character, Chu Feng, actually acted as if nothing had happened after throwing Ing Wudi here. He seemed to have forgotten about him and was strolling leisurely to the bridal chamber. Apparently, Chu Feng had underestimated the willfulness of a group of scheming saintesses who were as beautiful as flowers. Some of them were very calm and had been staring at him all along. They surged over again and left bright red lipstick marks on his collar and the back of his neck. This was eye poison. They were prepared to expose these incriminating evidence in front of Qin Luoyin and let Chu Feng have a good time. Chu Feng wasn't afraid at all. He wasn't afraid of those who dared to kiss him at all. He dodged once again when he met the fierce ones. After that, he fixed his eyes on Yuan Shiqing and rushed over rapidly. That was because the Saintess of the Silver Bear race was chasing after Chu Feng. In addition, there was also the Saintess of the Black Rhinoceros race. Each of them was fiercer and mightier than the other. "Hey, brother Chu Feng, why did you capture me?" Yuan Shiqing felt his blood run cold, following which, his scalp went numb. Chu Feng threw him to the Saintesses of the Silver Bear race and the Black Rhinoceros race. One was as white as jade, but her physique was simply too enormous. The other could be called a black pearl because her entire body was glowing black. This was absolutely at odds with Yuan Shiqing's aesthetic standards. Especially after he was hugged by the black pearl, he almost cried out loud. He couldn't bear it and didn't have the fortune to enjoy it. "Save me!" It was also difficult for him to move, but fortunately, he could still shout a few times. After that, there was no after that. Some saintesses were very interested in him and tangled with him, but they were quickly drowned out. "Everyone, hurry up and watch the live broadcast." Someone secretly took a private photo. Wow, Ingwudi actually likes majestic women. This is too unexpected. But looking at his hopeless expression, he must have been stimulated by Qin Luoyin's marriage. He's giving up on himself to despair. At this moment, many people from all over the universe were dumbstruck. Some people captured some scenes from the wedding scene and even secretly recorded them before uploading them to various major platforms. Oh my, Crown Prince Yuan Shiqing actually likes black pearls. This won't do. I have to go bask in the sun and try to make my skin a bit darker. Many people saw Ingwudi and Yuan Shiqing surrounded by orioles and swallows. They were drowned out. The regular Black Blood platform and the Origin Beast platform allowed people to come in and film, but they were strictly requested not to secretly take private photos. They had to be very formal. But there were still people from small platforms who secretly took these photos and gave some close-ups of Ingwudi and Yuan Shiqing. Sigh, do you guys see? These two can also be considered to be getting drunk. Look at them, they have no love in life and have given up on themselves. Yet they're willing to hide among the crowd of women. How pitiful. If these two were to find out, they would definitely curse out loud. Go to hell. Willingly hiding here and giving up on yourself is because you can't move, okay? They couldn't get rid of them. Yuan wanted to rescue her brother. The two of them had a good relationship, but in the end, she was caught by Chu Feng. Since the two groomsmen were being used, how could the bridesmaid not be used? Chu Feng caught her and kept her by his side to block the wine. He was in charge of clearing the way and using her identity as the Origin Demon Race's princess to intimidate the ordinary saintesses. Then, the starry sky exploded once again as many people discussed passionately. Look, Great Demon King Chu is so upright. He's unmoved by so many saintesses throwing themselves at him. He's so particular about dodging. As expected of the honest and kind divine King Chu. It seems we really misunderstood Great Demon King Chu in the past. His strength of character is indeed extraordinary. A group of people exclaimed in admiration. At the wedding venue, Ouyang Feng, Old Donkey, Big Black Yak, Yellow Cattle, and the others were rolling their eyes. That was because they had just received a message from Chu Feng. He was in charge of supervising the people secretly taking photos. At the same time, he had also given some of them red packets. That was why he had such a glorious image instead of an erotic scene. Wow, look quickly. Isn't that Princess Yuan of the Origin Demon Race? She's actually accompanying Chu Feng. She's helping him block the wine and blocking those saintesses for him. She's so serious. Yes, look carefully. She's still hugging one of Chu Feng's arms. She's truly fallen in love with him. She knows that Chu Feng is getting married today, and they can't be together in the future. At the end, she's helping him block the wine and blocking those beauties. She's so loyal. Many people were discussing in the starry sky. This was definitely an accident. Chu Feng hadn't expected it either. After Yuan Yuan, the princess of the origin demon race, and the 10th most beautiful woman under the starry sky, found some time to see the heated discussions on various platforms, she was so angry that her beautiful eyes widened. She was so angry that her sexy and enchanting body was trembling. She really wanted to say, "It's great demon King Chu who's grabbing my arm to block the wine, alright? It's not me who's hugging his arm. What kind of expression is this?" Chu Feng strolled leisurely with Yuan Yuan on his arm. When he passed by Ing Wudi and Yuan Shiqing, he smiled brilliantly and slightly devastatingly as he said, "You too, drink slowly. I wish you happiness. I'm going to the bridal room." Ouch! Ing Wudi clutched his chest in anger. He felt his heart ache and really wanted to punch that demon's hateful smiling face. Yuan Shiqing was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. At the same time, what made him furious was that great demon King Chu Feng was actually holding his little sister's arm. She was a bridesmaid, all right? She wasn't a bride. Chapter 873. Yuan Shiqing was about to stomp his feet. He wanted to fight to the death with Chu Feng. That fellow was actually holding his sister's arm and going to the bridal room? He wanted to beat Chu Feng to death. However, he couldn't jump up. He was drowned by a group of beautiful women and fell into the bloody mouth of the Silver Bear Saintess, Princess Black Rhino, and the others. Did you see that? Yuan Shiqing's eyes were filled with despair at the last moment. He wanted to struggle and wasn't willing to see the demon King Chu Feng go to the bridal room. It seems like his feelings for goddess Qin Luoyin are quite deep. He was still struggling with all his might for the last glance. In the starry skies, the people watching the live broadcast interpreted it too much and pinned the label of deep love on Yuan Shiqing's head. Many people were rather sympathetic. Chu Feng walked leisurely toward the depths of the Pure Land with the help of his bridesmaid, Yuan Yuan. This made a group of young evolvers envious. It was fine if he married the goddess, but he was even so ambiguous with his bridesmaid. Yuan Yuan cursed in her heart. She really wanted to hit someone, but she also wanted to say that she was passive, okay? In the damning Pure Land, spiritual mountains rose up and auspicious light shone everywhere. The place where the wedding was held used to be the saint's place of seclusion. Apart from the open terrain, the scenery was also elegant. Within the Pure Land, there were many spiritual trees. They were all mutant species with colorful flower buds the size of bowls. They were sparkling and glowing, with wisps of mist lingering around them and releasing a faint fragrance. "Brother Chu Feng, it's an honor to meet you at last." At this moment, Chu Feng had already walked toward the depths of the Pure Land and left the bustling gathering place of the guests. However, he was still stopped by someone who greeted him. A white-haired man smiled and raised his cup to him, then walked over and toasted him. This person looked to be less than 30 years old and could be considered heroic. He had a deep smile on his face, but he was a little stiff when speaking the universal language. Chu Feng was slightly surprised. He noticed that this person's level of evolution wasn't low at all. He was a golden body expert and had a majestic energy source on him. Ding! The two of them clinked their cups. As the wine entered his mouth, this person smiled and patted Chu Feng's shoulder, saying, "The bride is not bad, she's very beautiful." Hearing this, Chu Feng's eyes suddenly became sharp. What did this mean? In addition, this person came from the depths of the Pure Land, which was the direction of the bridal chamber. His expression was slightly cold. Whoosh! Golden runes appeared in Chu Feng's eyes. His eyes of fire and gold shot out a brilliant beam of light as he looked ahead. Not only that, but his sense of smell and hearing were all enhanced as well. In an instant, Chu Feng smelled the faint scent of blood drifting over from the front. At the same time, the divine light in Chu Feng's eyes rose sharply, and his killing intent rose sharply. He blasted out a golden fist seal towards this person. He could already tell that this person was not made of flesh and blood, but an incarnation. If not for his eyes of fire and gold, he would not have been able to tell that this person was stalling for time and blocking his way. However, looking at this person's fearless appearance, it seemed like he was quite conceited. His true body might have already been obtained in the Pure Land. Pup! This person's incarnation didn't resist him. It took the initiative to disintegrate into hundreds of fragments and transform into flowing light that rushed towards the Pure Land. Daring to cause trouble in the damning Pure Land in such an arrogant manner, this person's background was definitely not simple. Even the Origin Demon Race's princess, Yuan Yuan, was deeply shocked. One had to know that this was the day of Great Demon Chu's marriage with the highly ranked damning Pure Land, yet someone actually came to cause trouble without the slightest scruple. It seemed like he wanted to target the bride and rush over before Chu Feng. If he really succeeded, how terrifying would that be? The most important thing was that the experts arranged by the Pure Land actually couldn't stop him, and the scent of blood drifted over. Boom! Chu Feng transformed into a golden bolt of lightning as though he was tearing the void apart. The air exploded as he traversed through the void, almost as if he was teleporting. Buzz! His speed was too fast. He caught up to those flowing lights and directly strangled them. He didn't stop in the slightest as he rushed towards the depths of the Pure Land. He was very worried. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of a beautiful divine mountain. There was a palace here with white immortal mist lingering around it and melodious music rippling. Then, Chu Feng saw traces of blood here and some corpses in front of the palace. This made the veins on his forehead bulge violently as he flew into a rage. There was actually someone who dared to disturb his wedding and kill people wantonly under such auspicious and joyous circumstances. How arrogant and callous was this! They didn't put him and the damning Pure Land in their eyes at all. This was absolutely a fight to the death. They came to kill people on such a joyous occasion and suddenly attacked the bridal chamber. This was aimed at the bride. Even if it was someone else, not Chu Feng, they still wouldn't be able to endure such a thing. If that person succeeded, it would be a great hatred and extraordinary shame. A man wouldn't be able to raise his head for the rest of his life. Yuan Yuan also felt the enemy's deep malice. They did things to the extreme and didn't leave any leeway. It was even worse than the great enmity of killing one's relatives and the great disaster of killing oneself. Oh, these maids are too weak. Even though the two old monsters are a bit interesting, they're still not enough. They can't resist killing, hee. Send the message, we've succeeded. Someone was speaking in the hall with a faint smile on his face. He was calm and tranquil. There were some corpses on the ground, including two old women from the Pure Land. Both of them were elders at the Golden Body Realm. With their status, they were willing to stay here on such a joyous occasion just to protect Qin Luoyin. From this, one could see how much importance they attached to this matter. Chu Feng, he's just a piece of trash yet he wants to marry such an outstanding beauty. Hee, let's change the bridegroom tonight and let him watch. These words were very cold and extremely malicious. Coming from these people, Chu Feng's killing intent was like a tornado on the spot that wanted to sweep away the clouds in the sky. He stood at the entrance of the hall and appeared without a sound. Luoyin, don't come out. A golden body elder, who hadn't died yet, shouted weakly. Elder. Qin Luoyin decisively threw away the phoenix crown and held a divine sword in her hand. 5-colored divine light erupted as she stood in the bridal chamber, her chest heaving up and down violently. Boom! The enemy attacked with the intention of capturing Qin Luoyin. However, light surged from the last room and runes flickered. An incomparably astonishing domain had long since been laid down. What's going on? There's a domain in the bridal chamber? One of them frowned, following which, another person raised his hand and formed a large hand of light. He was about to pick up the old woman on the ground and interrogate her about the way in. Boom! At this moment, Chu Feng erupted in a towering rage. He felt his killing intent about to explode because he had actually encountered such an infuriating matter. His lightning fist blasted that large hand away. At the same time, a whirlwind rushed up and wrapped around the heavily injured old woman as he returned. She was the only survivor of Qin Luoyin's protection. The others had all been killed. There were a total of 3 men in the room. One of them was a white-haired man, the one he had met on the way. This was the true body and the one before was just an incarnation. Chu Feng had a lot of great medicines on him. He immediately produced a bottle of red medicine and poured it into the old woman's mouth. This immediately strengthened her life force. He immediately saw through the situation in the palace. If he hadn't laid down a domain in the bridal chamber, Qin Luoyin might have met with a calamity. At this moment, his killing intent surged and he couldn't bear it any longer. Chu Feng! Qin Luoyin cried out. Her beautiful face was full of killing intent at first, but now it had become weak. Her eyes were red and her face was full of grief. Even her maids and elders had died. This made her feel heartache and anger. Don't be sad. Wait for me to deal with them, Chu Feng said coldly. He was fairly calm. Amen, you're Chu Feng? The 3 of them were astonished. They hadn't expected him to arrive so quickly. Although they had spoken disrespectfully before, they didn't dare look down on him when facing him with their true names. Boom! Chu Feng attacked. When he activated the thunderous breathing technique, the sound of thunder erupted from his body and reverberated through the palace complex. He blasted out with his Virokana fist. He didn't want to say anything at the moment. He only wanted to kill. Fortunately, Qin Luoyin was fine. Otherwise, he and the damning Pure Land would have become a joke. These people were too hateful. Moreover, he believed that it wasn't just these 3. There were accomplices who had sent out a message just now when they thought they had succeeded. In the blink of an eye, the palace exploded. Apart from Qin Luoyin's room, the entire palace was blasted apart and turned into fine powder. One could see just how powerful the collision was. That was because this place was originally protected by a domain, but it wasn't as powerful as the bridal chamber. Chu Feng's eyes shot out divine light. He immediately realized that these were people from the outerverse. That was because they had the aura of a quasi-sage in their bodies despite being at the Golden Arhat realm. This was quite similar to Luo Shang, whom he had killed a month ago. Clang! One of them wielded a blade that looked like the deity blade and hacked at Chu Feng's head. Another wielded a spear and directly stabbed at Chu Feng's chest. The last one waved a golden palm and slapped forward. Report! The white-haired man growled. He felt that things were getting tricky. The 3 of them attacked at the same time, but they actually couldn't suppress Chu Feng immediately. Instead, they were enveloped by his fist light. This kind of light was like thunder. It rumbled and caused the void to tremble. Even though they had a portion of the quasi-sage's origin, they still found it extremely strenuous. This terrified them. Are you just lackeys? How dare you ruin my wedding? Go to hell. Chu Feng was furious and only wanted to kill. He wanted to end the battle as soon as possible and immediately display his strongest form. Order runes faintly appeared around his body and divine chains shot out violently. It was clear that he was on par with the quasi-sage. In the rear, Yuan was astonished. This kind of method was indeed terrifying. It wasn't without reason that the great demon King Chu Feng far surpassed his peers. He had actually reached this step. Bang! The spear-wielding man's weapon was smashed into 7 or 8 pieces. The spearhead flew back and pierced into his own chest. Of course, this wasn't the end. He was enveloped by Chu Feng's fist light and instantly disintegrated. His white bones and blood splattered as he died on the spot. Kill! At this moment, Chu Feng was truly like a great demon king. He was cold and merciless. Virokana fist struck out again. It was like a golden god attacking, wanting to shatter the universe with one punch. Bang! The man wielding the long blade let out a blood-curdling scream. He had already been disintegrated and died a miserable death. Speak, where are you from? Otherwise, these two will be your role models. We came to the chaotic universe. Chu Feng, let's talk nicely. This time, it's not just our side that came. 3 minor saints have come personally. They're invincible in the universe, said this person. He was quite cooperative. You can die now, said Chu Feng. He pressed forward and stared at the white-haired man. No, we're not followers. We're brothers of a minor saint. Don't kill me. The white-haired man was anxious. Are they all in the Pure Land? Asked Chu Feng. Yes. Following this, Chu Feng asked a few more questions. The man's eyes flickered and he wasn't very cooperative. Then what's the use of keeping you alive? Chu Feng attacked and broke his neck with a snap. Then, he pointed out with a finger. Thunder rumbled and extinguished his soul light, destroying both his body and soul. Since they were all in the Pure Land, he wasn't worried that he wouldn't be able to find them. Under the fiery eyes, any quasi-saint level evolver would have nowhere to hide. He could find them all. I want to see how strong you guys are. How dare you be so malicious as to ruin my wedding and even want to change the groom? How humiliating. Beat them all up. Chu Feng was surging with killing intent. At this moment, he was furious. I'll go with you, said Qin Luoyin. Don't show yourself. Let me see how tyrannical these people are. I won't be able to vent my anger if I don't kill them myself, said Chu Feng. This group of people was too sinister. They actually dared to target him like this. If it wasn't for the powerful domains he had set up, the consequences would have been unimaginable. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.